in the first couple of days, and the reason that they're doing that is to try and limit their losses in an individual time trial like this.
Well, 15:46, he holds on to third place for the moment. Josh van Emden, a Dutchman, heading up the leaderboard. Everybody's enjoying themselves, and boy, that water looks inviting right now. The temperature here is around about 35-36 degrees Celsius. We're tickling 100 degrees at the moment. Dustbin look clean because of the flowers and the way they decorate everything. It really is a lovely country.
Clean and organised, and this is a pretty impressive ride here by Robert Hessing. As I said, Phil, not normally renowned as an individual time trialist, and I think he will be happy with that time.
I think he should be, because he's gone into second place. Nobody, though, is getting close to Josh van Emden, 7 minutes and 27 seconds at the midway turn. But
a minute and 10 seconds is a huge amount of time for Mark Cavendish to lose this afternoon. But I have to say that on the far side of the track, Nasser Bouhani, he will be trying to nurse himself through these opening stages, because he had a very dramatic crash at the finish of the French National Championship, and there was a big question mark right up until 5 o'clock last night whether or not he'd be able to come out of the starting gate. But he said, Phil, if it was any other race, he would not be here. But this is the Tour de France. That's what's so special about this event. Everybody wants to be here. It's the biggest theatre in the world for a professional cyclist.
And Nasser's a sprinter as well, and we're looking for Mark Cavendish at the finish at Zeeland tomorrow, I suspect. Like Rowan Dennis, his last Tour de France was in 2013. And like Rowan Dennis, he didn't get round, of course. He abandoned the race on stage of 6. So he's back again, he's back with a vengeance, and he wasn't going to let it crash. And it was a spectacular crash in France in the National Championships. This is Rowan Dennis now, and he's taken a minute out of Lars Bak, and that is a good scout. Bak is a former time trial champion of Denmark. Rowan just flies by him, and right before a huge audience here. I wonder if he can find that 1 second to give him the lead.
Well, that is all he's looking for here, 15 minutes and 11 seconds, but he seems to be going faster in the second part of the course. You could see the speed difference between those two riders when he caught Lars Bak. He used a little bit of the slipstream, flicked straight past him. That will give him an added advantage of maybe a second or so. He was 1 second off at half distance, but he'd be liking to turn that into a 1 second advantage if he can.
Richie Porte here, the champion of Australia as well, as he continues. Just checking now that he's not into the leader positions down at the check yet. In fact, he's not on the board. I'm not sure he's even gone there just at the moment.
Yes, he's just gone through in
just
12th place, looking for 22 seconds. This may well be a little bit short and violent for Richie Porte, but the important thing is to set the advantages and to set the times for his teammates who go off a little later in the afternoon.
Is he going to go inside 15 seconds? That would be unthinkable on this course of 13.8 seconds, 8 kilometres rather, as he swings around now. He is on the ride of his life here. Rowan Dennis is going to put a mark up on the board, which many riders, and maybe all of them, are going to find impossible to match. This is a man who held the world hour record. He was second to Richie Porte in the national titles this year. Now he comes up towards the line. He must know, he must see the clock as he pushes out the seconds. He's inside. What an incredible ride. Paul, that could go the distance.
Well, this man has got a serious reference. The former world hour record holder, a world champion on the track. This man, I think, over the last 10 days has specifically aimed for this. This is probably the only stage of the Tour de France where he's given a free rein, because the BMC squad from the United States are here to look after the interests of TJ Van Garderen. But today, because of his pedigree, they've said, go on, Rowan, it's your day today. And there he set the bar very, very high. He did 14 minutes and 56 seconds.
And that's waiting for Nairo Quintana into the start house. He goes on the hour, and he's one of our big fours. We quickly go out on course at the moment with Rigoberto Urán. Urán himself, the champion of Colombia, while another Colombian man who hopes he'll be first to the podium in Paris in 3 weeks' time is now making ready in the start house himself. Big moments this for Quintana. He's only just come back to the Tour de France after a 2-year gap when he finished second.
Well, Nairo Quintana, again, hoping to raise the bar very high for Colombian cycling on what I say as a renaissance of the sport in that country. And for a man not renowned really for his time trialling ability, Quintana is a winner of the Giro d'Italia, second overall in the Tour de France. He's quietly prepared the Tour de France at home in the region of Boyacá. He said, I don't need to go to altitude training. He said, I live at 3,000 meters and I'd rather be at home because, as he, in fact, his team manager said to us just before the start of this race, he said, because I don't have to pay for a hotel.
The long road, Paul, the noise of the crowd. Quintana sitting in second time at this point, but he will lose time as he races this last 600 metres.
Well, I don't think he's going to lose as much as he might have done on a course like this. This man has ridden on courage here this afternoon of the worst possible terrain that he could be racing over for a man who is reputedly one of the best climbers in the world. It's this pan-flat, pancake course here in Holland. I think when the clock stops at the end of the day, he'll be quite satisfied as he's thrown his bike around all of these corners very, very aggressively indeed.
Well, he knows that Contador, Froome are going to ride hard, Nibali too. He's got to give it his best shot. He wants to stay close to those riders for the first week before he gets them in the Pyrenees and can take them on. This is a good ride. Hey, he's comparing himself against one of the best riders in the world at the time trial, who set the highest ever average speed for a time trial, and he's crossed the line 14th to Rowan Dennis. A very good ride, I think, by Nairo Quintana. He'll wait to see what the big boys do at the end of the day and see how
surprised this afternoon. He's on great form. Peter Sagan, 3 times winner of the green jersey points competition. Well, Sagan created a bit of a surprise this year in the Amgen Tour of California when, in fact, he went out and he won the individual time trial when people thought he was going to get wiped away from the top end of the overall standings. He defended it in the mountains and went on to win with the time bonus sprint. Oh, now there's a problem here. Now this, well, just having a quick look there. Now that was a little bit of a surprise. That's Dominique Nerds. He rides for the Bora Argon squad. And a little bit of confusion. Matthias Brandl is the rider a little bit further up there. He's another former world time trial champion. And, well, he's not going to rival the time of Rowan Dennis as he comes up to the line as well. Just a little bit further behind him, but there's a little chance to spot Bryce Felu and Dominique Nerds.
Brandl comes up towards the line here, another former hour record holder, as indeed was Rowan Dennis, but for Brandl, he's in 5th place for him. So, at the checkpoint now, Tony Martin has gone through 4 seconds slower than the leader, but 3 seconds slower than Rowan Dennis. The challenge is on.
The challenge is on, and let's not forget how experienced Tony Martin is, whether it's the World Championships or the German Time Trial Championships. He is a master of the effort against the clock, and that's what he will be doing. He'll be trying to lift his pace in the final few kilometres. He knows the time to beat. The time on the clock is the only time registered inside of 15 minutes, 14 minutes and 56 seconds.
Jens, we're looking at Tony Martin. You know this guy better than any of us, but can he make up that difference now in what's left of this time trial?
Well, I believe Tony has a plan. He has the advantage of knowing the times to the split times. Probably his team car followed other riders of his team, so he has split times on every corner of the road. He will know exactly where he has to go, how fast he has to go, and I think he has enough left to actually turn it around and gain this 4 seconds somewhere. Once he got his big diesel engine warmed up, he's just like rolling. So I believe he got a fair chance of making it.
Well, the way he's riding these corners, he's certainly not losing any time at the moment, but 3 seconds, nobody, Paul, has achieved that throughout the whole of the day. Everybody has lost time on the journey from that checkpoint.
Yeah, but just to go back to Jens there, Jens, we talked about this time trial. We looked at the corners and thought they were technical, but once you put the barriers up, they're not that technical, these corners. That probably gives the advantage to Tony Martin, I think, over Fabian Cancellara. Do you agree?
Yes, indeed, it looks like the corners are actually a lot easier to take than we thought by looking at the profile and looking at the road book. They did a good job here in securing the road and putting the barriers in a way that riders can take the corners in a best possible angle. So yes, it does look like a very fast course, and the times that these riders do they just confirmed that it is a very fast course.
Well, this massive crowd enjoying the hot sun of Utrecht here. The time trial is still finely poised, but what will Tony Martin do?
Now, this is a rather interesting story because this man was born 50 kilometers away from here. Lars Boom, born in Vlemen. You can see the damp coming off him. That was to keep him as cool as possible. There was a possibility that this man wasn't going to start overnight after tests revealed low cortisol levels. Now, I was just listening into the crowd there. The low cortisol levels does not mean that you have been involved in any infringement at all of doping activities, but it's an indication that there may well be a health problem. The Movement for Credible Cycling has an agreement that if you have low cortisol levels, you should be prevented from starting for 8 days. And unfortunately, well, fortunately, I think for the Dutch at least, Lars Boom's team decided to go against that agreement. It's not an official agreement anywhere in the world. It doesn't come under the International Cycling Union's rules and regulations, so he is going out to start. Back now with Peter Sagan.
Peter Sagan out on the road here. He can be a very good time trialist, Paul. It's just that today he's racing that he would have to race the fastest time trial in the history of the Tour de France, and I just can't see that being possible. Boysenhagen out of the start house.
Champion of Norway in the individual time trial, champion of Norway in the road race. This man, all of a sudden, after having a little bit of a difficult start to the season, Phil, I think now is coming into form at the right time for MTN Quebec. He loves riding for this team, and I think they're extremely proud of the fact that he is a double time trial champion.
Yes, this guy is sort of come alive again now after leaving Team Sky. He's become a winner again on the MTN Quebec team, and now look at Tony Martin here. He's just eating in. This is Rohan Sicard, the Basque Frenchman, in front of him now, and he's pulling him back into his sights. 2.2 kilometers out. He's been almost a minute. It's going to be a record, otherwise he can't possibly beat Rohan Dennis.
Well, that's pressure for anybody. Roman Sicard, former world under-23 road racing champion. That's him a little bit further up the road. His sights will be set on the high spots of the Tour de France, like the Pyrenees and, of course, the Alps. Martin coming up to his slipstream as close as possible and just catapulting slightly out. That's not an illegal move. He's allowed to, as long as he moves directly out of the slipstream of the rider who he catches. He will not be penalised at all, but he will get a slight advantage, maybe a second or a second and a half, but that could be the difference between winning and losing.
12.3 kilometres done. The clock is telling us the time of Dennis 14.56, so we're approaching. He's got to be through in a minute. He's looking for that kilometre banner if he's going to do it, and it's not very far away now. This is going to be a desperately close finish, I think. Tony Martin against Rohan Dennis. We just want to see Rohan Dennis's face right now, sat at the start house, at the finish house rather. Back out on course. This is Peter Sagan looking very, very smoothly on his nice S-Works bike, but is it quick enough? He's not giving us any indication at the check.
Well, he's never really been renowned as an individual time trialist, but he has actually ridden high, finished in the top 20 long time trials at the Tour de France before. But I think the big revelation was that victory in the Amgen Tour of California. That was a quick glimpse there of Rohan Dennis, the man who sits in the hot seat. 14 minutes and 56 seconds, 55 kilometres an hour. Now he's going to have a chance to see Tony Martin. But what is the clock going to tell us? Is he going to rival? It's going to be very, very close indeed. 14 and a half minutes. He's got to get to the finish line now in around about 20 seconds from now as he comes through the chicane. The time to beat 14:56 for Rohan Dennis. Tony Martin, can he do it? He's been the world champion. He's the current time trial champion of Germany. It's all about this final few meters for the line. He's digging deep. He's looking for it. Will he do it? The clock is ticking by. It's going to be oh so very close, and he's not going to do it because Rohan Dennis is still the leader of this bike race, and Tony Martin goes outside by 5 seconds. Well, Rowan Dennis, oh, probably biting his fingernails. If he didn't do it before today, he's probably started right here this afternoon. He still holds on to the overall lead. He can tick off the favourites one by one as to who can now beat the man who sits in the hot seat. There you go.
Tony Martin didn't recover, and it seems everybody has that trouble. Alberto Contador will not be looking to win the race today, but he'll be looking to finish very, very closely to Chris Froome, Nibali and Quintana.
Well, we talk about these short, violent efforts. As we look here at Alberto Contador preparing, Phil, it's very much like the start of a Formula One race. You've got to get to the starting grid, you've got to get to the starting position with a very hot engine. Andrew Talansky, though, in the Stars and Stripes, a newly crowned American national time trial champion. And he knows how important this time trial is to him.
On this 4th of July, Andrew Talansky is set to roll.
So, Captain America, Andrew Talansky's finished 10th in the Tour de France in the past. He crashed out last year, very sad to do so. It was a crazy little crash on the sprint up towards the finish line. He went down, struggled for the next few days and had to pull out. Jerome Koppel, by the way, is the newly crowned French national time trial champion. He beat Sylvain Chavanel on that occasion. So he too is coming into the Tour de France in fine form. Rides for the IAM cycling squad of Switzerland. And still the question is waiting to see what Peter Sagan's time is going to be like coming up to the intermediate time sprint. Alexander Kristoff. Well, not a surprise really. Kristoff is not an individual time trialist. He's much better known for coming out of the big bunch sprints, and that will be what he'll be looking for tomorrow.
So Alexander Kristoff, 54th place, not important. He might well cross the swords tomorrow with Mark Cavendish. But
Fabian Cancellara, because of experience and because of the fact that I think he's on ascending form coming up to the Tour de France.
Fabian Cancellara has taken the start. He is a prologue specialist in the Tour de France. He knows it, but there's a question mark on his form. He's coming back from serious injury in the Classics. For Fabian Cancellara, you know, it all began so well in 2004 because he won the prologue there, and that was in Liège, where we go not far away in a couple of days' time. And he kept the yellow jersey for a while. Then in 2007 he won in London, and what a crowd that was. I remember that like it was only yesterday. He is a prologue specialist, Paul. This isn't technically a prologue, but the fact is it's the first day of the Tour de France, and he's the only man left who can possibly beat a perfect day for the Australian Dennis.
Well, it wasn't a prologue, Phil, when he won in Monaco either, because it was around about 13.5 to 14 kilometres, a very difficult course. People said it didn't suit Fabian Cancellara, but he is a man of the big occasions. And I think, you know, the fact that he had that very nasty injury in the first part of the season, he's battled his way back. He fought his way through the Tour of Switzerland, was beaten in the time trial there, but I think, you know, he knows how to rise to the occasion.
And that, I think, might be to his standing here. He was beaten by Tom Dumoulin a couple of weeks ago in both time trial stages of the Tour of Switzerland. Dumoulin at the moment sits in 3rd place and 8 seconds slower than Rowan Dennis. And Dennis himself will know. This man is the only man now who can stop him becoming the next Australian to wear the yellow jersey. And if memory serves you right, we've had 7 wearers of the yellow jersey from Australia. Phil Anderson, Stuart O'Grady, Brad McGee, Robin McEwen, Cadell Evans and Simon Gerrans. Are we about to see the next one? And even when you come from Switzerland, which is a little bit away from Holland, the crowd are still behind the sport. TJ Van Garderen in the start house now. Best young rider and finished 5th in the 2012 Tour de France. This is a man who is really fired up for this event. He won the Amgen Tour of California a couple of years ago, didn't ride it this year. He wants this race.
Well, Phil, talk about the American rider with the Dutch name. They will be loving him around the course here. But Fabian Cancellara has just gone through with the 4th best time at half distance, 2 seconds adrift. He's throwing down the gauntlet.
1 second adrift of Dennis. That's the significant point. Only 1 second adrift of Rowan Dennis. But hey, we've been there before with a couple of other riders who faded on the running. So we'll see. But Cancellara may well be riding himself in. If there's anybody that can rise to the occasion, it is this rider from Switzerland. He's a very popular guy as well. He's a family man. Everybody will be cheering on Cancellara. It is going to be a sprint to the line.
I think it's
looks like the necklace of Alejandro Valverde, the road racing champion, and the teammate of Nairo Quintana.
I'm currently using the linear bike.
He'll be a very, very strong ally for Quintana in the mountains this time. He's a man full of surprises. He's got some terrific performances under his belt. Alberto Contador will be next to follow 1 minute later now. Back out up front. This is the moment.
Well, Rouvy, Gibble and the composite wheels are a bit heavier. The main race has a long descent, and so the air advantage would be a benefit to me. If the starting climb is a bit shorter,
Alberto Contador stretches out his neck. He knows how important the time trials are. He's run time trials before, but they're a lot hillier and longer than this. Fabian Cancellara has gone through the check and he's only 1 second behind the time of Rowan Dennis. That will come down to the line. Contador starts. This most popular rider from Spain, and attempting this year to do the double. The first time the Giro and the Tour de France will have been won in the same year. And the last man was the late Marco Pantani in 1998.
Those little crashes, especially the one I had in the individual time trial a couple of years ago, he said, I don't think it's worth taking the risks anymore.
With Alberto Contador.
Well, look at this now. Cancellara, ahead of Cancellara is Rui Costa here, former world road race champion, being pulled back for a minute by Cancellara. Cancellara is absolutely flying. He's using him now as a target, and he's going to zoom over his shoulder as he closes right in on. As long as he keeps going, that's legal. As we go back to the start house, the man who dominated the Tour de France last year is last to go.
I don't know what his name is. Must have been like one of the later years.
Nibali slips through the gears. He made his reputation on the roads of the United Kingdom in general and Yorkshire in particular. He never lost his grip on the Tour de France till Paris. But all of the favourites on that occasion crashed out by stage 10. Now he's got to face them again, and can he handle them? As we look towards the finish now, Cancellara has gone past Costa. Look at the clock here, 14:30. This is going to be desperately close as he comes up towards the turn now for the line. And this is the crucial flick towards the end. It's going to be close, Paul. It could even go down to 100ths of a second here. The big man from Switzerland slips up the gears, kicks with those legs. 14:56. He's got 6 seconds to get to the line. Fabian Cancellara, is he going to spoil the party for Rowan Dennis? The answer is no, he is not. Rowan Dennis becomes the 7th Australian to wear the yellow jersey in the Tour de France as Cancellara comes in. I know we've got big names to finish, but they'll never beat that man now. It's impossible.
Well, it's going to be very, very difficult to beat Rowan Dennis at the top of the leaderboard, but Fabian Cancellara, like so many other of these riders, was rivaling his time at half distance, but it was the second half of the course where he really paid for those opening moments of effort.
Well, out on course now as we continue to watch the riders swinging. This is Jean-Christophe Perrault. As we switch down the road, Chris Froome names we're going to be calling from probably stage 10 onwards in the mountains. Let's hope that Chris Froome gets to see stage 10 in the mountains, because last year he crashed out on stage number 5. And he has good form. Alberto Contador also, he left the Tour last year on stage number 10 with a broken leg. The Tour is fraught with danger. It's the nature of the beast. But now this time trial has been significant, and what a great time trial.
Brilliant time trial, well traced. Again, I think the Tour de France this year have tried to throw something in for everybody, especially over the first 9 stages. We've got mountain, we've got hilltop finishes, we've got cobblestones, we've got wind and difficult climatic conditions, but we've also got a test here in the individual time trial. Inside of 14 kilometers by a fraction, they've got some technical corners and of course some big power strips as well to give us our first indication of what's happening. Oh, this is Cancellara. For a moment.
I thought he crashed, yes. Fabian's give his best.
Short, violent effort for Alberto Contador, who was getting himself back into form after a little bit of training at altitude after his victory in the Giro d'Italia, nodding his head a fraction there. He knows how violent this effort is. It really is a very difficult short effort over a period of around about 15 or 16 minutes. He's pushing, he's looking for that final little chicane. Again, not too bad a rider. The main contenders, some of them have lost a couple of chunks of time, and this is the first day in the psychological battle of supremacy.
Contador's losing time for Quintana, so after this first day of racing, advantage Quintana, who's beaten him in the time trial by a few seconds, okay, maybe a bit more than a few seconds right now, but nonetheless, Contador races up towards the line. It's not position that matters, it's the time lost. And as he hits the line, 15:54, and in fact he has beaten Quintana by 4 seconds.
Well, I don't think that's actually very much when you think about the time trialing prowess of Alberto Contador in the past. What's more important to me now is to see what Chris Froome is going to do, and Chris Froome now is trying to line himself up. Not a bad ride for Froome here as he starts to line himself up for the finish. For him, it could be the psychological blow. The best rider for the overall standing so far has been Robert Hessink, who is 11th, and he's lost 33 seconds.
Here comes Froome now, and he's got to stay on a par with Contador and Quintana, and at the moment he is, but he's got to sprint the gap shut here. He doesn't want to see 16 minutes come up on that clock. We're only talking seconds, let's face it, but you never know. Remember, Greg LeMond once won the Tour de France by 8 seconds. As Chris Froome hits the line, it's good, 15:46. The favourites are coming home hand in hand.
Right, only 3 riders left out on the course.
This is life knowing that he has just set the record in the time trial in a Tour de France. That's Rowan Dennis with his girlfriend, and around the back there, and he's going to pull on a yellow jersey tonight as the next leader from Australia in the Tour de France. Out to the champion defending, Vincenzo Nibali. And now we see Jean-Christophe Perrault out on course as well, second last year. He'll be hard pressed to finish second or even third this year. If this field goes all the way to Paris, it's going to be a battle royale for sure in the mountains. He's also, age is not on his side anymore, but he certainly gave the French a lot to cheer last time out. This is Arnaud Demar coming up towards the line now. And he's going to be a little bit down the field here, but that was to be expected. He's hoping to be in amongst the sprint finishers tomorrow for the win in Zeeland.
Well, Phil, talking about the battle for the overall standings, Vincenzo Nibali went through the intermediate time split there with the 18th best time, just 11 seconds off the lead, so that's not a bad performance by him, and I think he will probably come through the best of all of the big 4 when it comes down to stopping the clock on the final finishing line. J.C. Perrault now can't be too far away from coming up to stopping the line.
Now he needs to stay inside 16 minutes to stay in amongst the leaderboard going out on tomorrow's stage. He looks as though he might just be on the 16-minute mark. Contador, Quintana and Froome have achieved their objective today. They're only a couple of seconds apart, and we still wait the arrival of the last man, Nibali. And Jean-Christophe Perrault as well. Another very solid performance, great ride. They're all going out tomorrow looking like they're still going to be good friends. The times Man that took control of the race last year on a little hill in the city of Sheffield in the UK when he took the yellow jersey on the second day. And now Vincenzo Nibali comes here as the defender of the 2004. And it's going to be a good ride too. It's almost as if these guys had a powwow before the start, because they're all finishing within seconds of each other. And Nibali now is coming up towards the line, and it's going to be a very good time from the defending champion as well. But there's the winner, and Rowan Dennis becomes only the 7th Australian to wear the yellow jersey. So, nice to see French television on the ball there, straight in for the interview as we salute Rowan Dennis tonight.
Well, there we go. There's confirmation that Rowan Dennis will be the first wearer of the 2015 Tour de France yellow jersey, and the only rider to go inside of. It's a phenomenal performance, a record speed for the time trial at 55 kilometers an hour. Tony Martin at 5 seconds. Fabian Cancellara third. We can once again look at that confirmation. All great individual time trialists as well. Steve Cummings, by the way, very quietly, we never saw that, and he will cross the line in 10th place. So Team MTN Quebec getting a rider inside of the top 10. But the gaps, pretty huge gaps between 1st and 10th place. 32 seconds is the difference between Rowan Dennis and Steve Cummings.
Kilometre zero is almost upon the peloton. The journey from Utrecht to Zeeland gets underway. 166 kilometres remaining. Breton Sachet, the first team to attack. And Steph Clement, as expected, the Dutchman for IM Cycling. He is right on the hammer, looking to get himself into the first move of the race. And here is the big Dutchman. Peric Cumier is the rider sitting in 2nd position from Europcar. Cumier, and for the Boris squad making the move, it's Jan Barter from the Czech Republic, who is a good rider to have in the break. He's got plenty of horsepower, Jan Barter. And this looks as if it could very well be the move to get established, and established very early. For Breton Sachet, it's Armando Fonseca. He's been riding with this team since 2011. He's yet to get a win, but he's had 3 seconds. 4 riders off the front, and automatically we're seeing Lotto Soudal at the head of the main peloton. They're happy with the composition of the breakaway, so they're allowing the group to go. And no surprise, it's the smaller teams that get themselves into the move. Europcar once again looking for a new sponsor. It's so often the case with the Europcar team. And they've got one of the contenders for today's stage. Although they've got Peric Cumier in the breakaway, they've got a contender in the sprint finish with Brian Coquard. Brian Coquard, world champion on the track in the Madison. So he's got good craft working his way through the peloton. edX Quickstep also with 3 riders at the front. They're also happy with the composition. I'll just hit the cruise button, let that breakaway establish a lead somewhere around the 3-minute mark, I would imagine, before they start to get organised with the other teams of the sprinters and eventually try and reel that breakaway back in. A football stadium of Utrecht. with a capacity of around about 25,000 people. Marco van Basten was proudly spruiking Utrecht over the past few days, one of the great Dutch footballers from the 1980s. Hailed from Utrecht, was pretty happy to show it off to the rest of the world. And here is the former Dutch national time trial champion who had a nasty fall at the Tour of Italy this year. And when he did crash on that stage at the Tour of Italy, he was busy getting patched up by the official race doctors of the race, but he was also required as one of the random riders to get tested for anti-doping purposes. And they were telling him that if he's not there within a certain amount of minutes, it would be classified as a missed test, despite the fact that it was in the hands of the race medics getting patched up. And Steph's wife took to social media. She wasn't too happy about it. He did get there on time and he did what was required and was given the all clear.
And he will find some allies on the road today. His team won't have all of the pressure of defending the yellow jersey, because the teams of the sprinters in the latter part of this race will come to the front and try and mix it up with Rowan Dennis's BMC squad. They've got the new national champion there on the front there, Danilo Wies, in the red and white jersey with the cross on there. He was recently titled the national champion, world champion as well, Michael Kwiatkowski. He will do a lot of work for Mark Cavendish a little bit later on. I have to say, after experimenting for the last couple of seasons, I think Mark Cavendish now has got probably one of the best lead-out trains in the business. Roberto Uran just sitting a little bit further back behind him. You can see the green jersey on the shoulders today of the man who finished in second place in the time trial yesterday. And there's a chance there to see one of the little GoPro cameras, which we'll get access to a little bit later on. Technology improving all of the time.
These are the leaders, Steph Clement, Jan Bart, Piriga Kemeneur and Fonseca are the four riders out in front. Two Frenchmen, a member of the Czech Republic and a Dutchman in the breakaway. Well, we saw incredible crowds over the 3 days of racing in the United Kingdom last year to start the Tour de France. The Dutch, a much smaller nation as far as population goes, is turning on the style equally as well.
They certainly are a population of only about 14 million people, an area which is not very large at all. You can travel across Holland in 2 hours from north to south. You can travel across it in 3 hours going from east to west. So it is a rather small country, and I would say probably 20 or 30% of the population have turned out to see this bike race here this afternoon. The breakaway has got themselves pretty much pegged. It's 2 minutes and 15 seconds. I think we'll start to see a little bit of a psychological battle too. These guys, there is a lot of strength in this leading group of four riders. Jan Bart, a great individual time trialist from the Czech Republic. Steph Clement, the Dutch rider, formerly Dutch national time trial champion as well. But they won't want to build their lead up too much. They'll try and conserve as much energy as possible because they know there'll be a violent reaction a little later on. Now, how about that, Phil?
Well, some people can walk on water, you see. It is possible, even if you've just won the King of the Mountains title. And as we look at that, let Jens Voigt, who's listening into a commentary at the moment. Jens, you're with us, and you are absolutely a neutral voice here. We saw the massive crowds at the UK, the massive crowds here in Holland. You were in the breakaway in the UK, chasing that polka dot jersey that this man is wearing. Just what is it like to race in front of these people?
Well, I always did live off the emotions and off the feedback from the fans. I just love the support you feel and the passion the fans bring out to the road. I mean, they are there for hours on top of the road waiting for us to come by. You know, the fans make the show great. We would be nothing without the fans, and we can't thank them enough. And yeah, I always enjoyed it. And in my last years, I did soak up all the emotions I could. It was great to see this big crowds in Holland and last year in Great Britain. Absolutely lovely to race in front of such a crowd.
Wonderful, thanks Jens, as we continue to watch these pictures here. Well, there's no shortage of water in this bottle. In fact, the Dutch are convinced they are the people when it comes to discussing the use of water. minute 18 is the gap of 4 riders who got away literally when the flag was pulled in at the exit of the neutralised section in Utrecht, and it looks quite clear now that Mark Cavendish has decided he doesn't want this breakaway to run away with the race from the gun. He's put his Ethics Quickstep team on the front. They're limiting the escape. It's rather painful. They've dragged out literally 2 minutes 18 seconds at the moment, Paul. The weather at the finish line is not good, but they're racing in quite nice weather.
Well, as they get closer to the coast, they're going to start to feel the wind coming in off the North Sea, and it really is picking up. It was around about 8-9 miles an hour this morning. It's up to 16, 17 miles an hour now, which is around about 30 kilometres now. That's quite a wind. They're fairly lucky that on the approach to the finishing dam and dikes here, in fact, on a number of occasions, they've got these big dikes on the right-hand side, so for certain parts of the race, they will be slightly protected, but I'm sure all of the information concerning the weather conditions has been fed back to the team managers already, and these guys will know what's in store for them at the end of the afternoon.
The feature of the day so far, the massive, massive crowds, which have certainly rivaled the opening days. As Christian Prudhomme must wonder if he's ever going to take his Tour de France back to France.
Well, it certainly it's the first time ever, by the way, that the Tour de France has started outside of France 2 years in a row. It's the 6th time that the race has started in Holland, and certainly a massive start to the Tour de France this year. I think we're going to see a long status quo now as these riders basically just try and get the miles under their belts and set themselves up for the real start of the race. For me, will not begin until we get around about 60 kilometres to go. Once we've gone around Rotterdam and then start to really get out towards the coast, that's when these riders will see a change in the climatic conditions, because it's it's completely barren out here. We're only completed about 15 years ago the last links of all of these dams to control the level of the water in the Schelde and Rhine and Meuse regions, which in 1953 was a host of a very, very nasty flooding. More than 1,800 people lost their lives, and that's when they decided to try and control the floodwaters in this plain.
Which they now do, and they do it with a great deal of success. So they balance the North Sea when it tries to get in amongst it, and of course it also helps out, especially at the finishing line in Zeeland, where the oyster beds and the mussel fields are, and making sure that they don't sink them under a tidal wave. It all works very well now. The Dutch have really got the management system well organised. A break of 2 minutes and 18 seconds now in 2010, the big start. The Grand Depart was in Rotterdam, and they came out in their thousands there. Well, that's where we're headed to now, to Rotterdam. We'll pass through the centre of the city with 85 kilometres left to race, and that will be the sprint point of the day for the race for the green jersey. Then we'll know who's targeting that. The last concentrating here, this is Kemener, the Europe car rider. Then comes through Clement, followed by Barter. Jan Barter won his first Tour de France last year, which was the NetApp team. He's now on the Bora Argon 18 team. Looking for success, they hope, by the end of this day. They do have a sprinter on their squad, and his name is Sam Bennett from Ireland. I think he lives down in the Waterford Tipperary area, and he likes a rough, tough finish. Well, he might get one today.
Yeah, his team, when we spoke to them before the start of the race, Phil, were very buoyant about the fact that he's not scared of any of the reputations at all. This is the IJssel Hollandais, that's the name of the little river just over to the right-hand side. And interestingly enough, I think we will see a rough and tumble sprint down towards the finishing line.
Well, the river down there is 46 kilometres long, and it goes through the provinces of Utrecht and Southern Holland, which just happens to be the same 2 provinces that we are racing through today. And still the crowd enjoying quite warm conditions here. It's got a little bit chillier at the finishing line because it's very exposed. It's a great wildlife reserve too, where we are commentating from.
Quite deceptive as well looking at these riders, because you think when you're just looking at them sharing the pacemaking like this, it doesn't really look as if they're hammering along at quite a speed, but the average speed so far has been 46 kilometres an hour. It is very flat. As we mentioned, the highest point of the race today, Phil, is 6 metres in altitude above sea level, so nothing really too much to be concerned about.
No, and that's, I take my hats off to the organisation, because that is exactly the mid-term speed that they expected from the race today. The fastest they expected them to accomplish the distance is 48 kilometres an hour, which is virtually 30 miles an hour. 46 is expected, and 44 would be slower, so they're right on schedule just now. And it's because 4 riders are clear, but the peloton don't want them to get too far ahead, because they know they only have realistically maximum 6 stages in this race where the sprinter might get a chance at winning a stage. For the rest, it's one of pure climbing. It's a real tough tour.
Got to wonder about what goes through the minds of Ethics Quickstep to do all of this pacemaking in the first part of the race, although they probably realise they've got a chance of a day off tomorrow, because they certainly won't be trying to get the victory on tomorrow's stage for Mark Cavendish, because tomorrow I think is going to be a first big battle for the overall positions. You have to ride at the front end of the main field, because if you're not well placed going up to the finish at the top of the Mur de Cuy, using a good 30 to 40 seconds, and nobody wants to throw away that amount of time in the first week of the race.
Mikko Kwiatkowski, the world champion at the back there, number 111. I also got a glimpse of Steve Cummings, who is back in the Tour de France after a 3-year gap, and riding now for the MTN Quebec team.
Did a pretty impressive ride yesterday as well, getting himself inside of the top 10. I think MTN Quebec were very pleased with that performance of the British rider on their squad.
Gouda here, and you can see now the rain is on the camera lens, the umbrellas are up, arriving even earlier than even we anticipated, but those clouds have moved in off the North Sea, and they're quite a way inland at this point, something like 40 miles inland in fact, as these riders are having to settle in. Now Jens Voigt has told us that the breakaway won't worry too much about the crosswind and the rain, providing the road stayed narrow. It's the peloton that will find it most unpleasant. It might disturb their tempo. This is the home of the famous Dutch cheese that takes between 2 weeks and 2 years to mature. I don't think it smells too bad, does it, Gouda? It's all right.
Excellent cheese, I have to say, especially when you get the 24 or 36-month-old. Most of the big rounds of cow that they make here weigh in at 50 kilos. That's around about 40 pounds. And it's made mainly from the milk of the Holstein cow. Of course, you know the Holstein cow, don't you, Phil? It's a nice brown and white one.
Yeah, it's lovely. Haven't seen too many of them at all on this route so far. Still Mark Cavendish keeping his riders up front. Not got quite so many riders in amongst it now. Other riders beginning to help. Lotto, for example, in the red jerseys moving up. They're the team workhorses for Andre Greipel. Little warnings going out, because the roundabouts, if that's what it is, watch out, because they have these little cobbled approaches to them. Oh, they're actually filtered off to the right. The roundabouts are a problem in Holland, because they do separate the cars when they go round the roundabouts in 2 different tracks.
Yeah, we did get a chance to talk to 1 or 2 of the teams before the start of this race, who told us that they felt that this stage was so important. They'd actually been out and looked at the last 50 or 60 kilometres, and they said, unlike the Amstel Gold Race, which is a one-day race here in the early part of the season where everybody's concerned about the traffic furniture, the organisation here have done a brilliant job in removing a lot of the traffic furniture to make the race nice and safe over the last 50 or 60 kilometres. So that's fortunately one thing less to worry about for the competitors this year.
No.
Sorry, come again, please.
Will the riders actually speak to each other to signal the change of format at the front, or will they be taking orders from the team management?
I believe there will be some talks, but the way, if you look at the faces here, they don't seem to be too relaxed or too smiling. They're all stressed, and they all try to protect their captains, their leaders. I mean, just as I said, you see on the left side, Kev and his team. Right next to it, you see Nibali and Astana. Right there, Lotto and Greipel. Then you see Contador with Tinkoff Saxo and Quintana with his team, and Froome on the right side. So all the big names out here, and I don't think there's much talking or much working together here. They just want to keep their leaders in front and stay safe and protected.
Well, just looking at the peloton, Paul, this has taken on a very serious appearance now. This is, on what should be a routine stage of the Tour de France, has become a serious affair. We expected this.
Well, I'll tell you what, Phil, there's a lot of nervousness because, I'll tell you what, everybody's looking for the shortest road around here. And people take all kinds of risks, and you know, it's quite interesting how people will do anything they can to find what they think is the shortest way around a course like this. And that's a question of, you've got to be attentive all of the time to make sure that you find the shortest route, because although they told us that they'd removed a lot of the dangerous traffic furniture, Holland is renowned for its traffic furniture. It's very precarious, and in fact, just looking there's another move there at the front. You see the rider from Astana. I wonder if that was Lars Boom from this altitude, because of course, let's not forget, he's a multiple world champion in cyclocross, not at all afraid of jumping over the top of the grass verge in the middle of the road there.
It's a sign of desperate moments here, because it certainly looks like the big figure of Lars Boom there as he tries to jump across. It could have been Michele Scarponi, in fact, but he's got across anyway. But I'll tell you what, these now are not chasing the breakaway, they're getting on with the in-battle to keep their leaders who could win the Tour de France as safe as possible, as the weather is expected to change.
Well, that's an indication, really, that everybody's very, very concerned about their positioning, being at the front of the main field, making sure that they can take one or two risks, just not to lose any positions in the main field, because it's all about energy. And Duck, if you can. And now it's the jerseys of Tinkoff Saxo. I'm not sure really how to describe that colour at the front. Fluorescent yellow camo. But certainly you can spot it from this altitude. And the fifth rider in that fluorescent coloured helmet there is Peter Sagan. He's getting himself nervous now, thinking about the points at stake. There are points available for the first 15 riders to cross their intermediate sprint point once they start to go through Rotterdam. But on today's stage, there are 50 points available. The points are really heavily weighted for the first three riders, 50, 30 and 20 on the finishing line, and 20 points available once they come through Rotterdam. So I did notice that Peter Sagan was floating nicely up to the front end of the peloton.
Well, when the wind rips like this and the going gets rough, Peter Sagan is absolutely the man for the occasion. And these conditions developing like this will suit him down to the ground. He loves a strong ride towards the finish. As Mark Cavendish consistently tells everybody, Peter Sagan is not a sprinter. He's a strong bike rider who can do a lot of things well. And so this will suit him if the going gets rough, that's for sure.
I suppose you could call Peter Sagan a man for all seasons.
Indeed. We're looking out across what is now becoming the very bleak countryside here of the province of Holland Southern. And it's down here where the riders now have put all of the race favourites in safe positions near the front. The big teams, the teams who are looking to win this Tour de France in Paris, which is 3 weeks away today, are now driving the peloton, which is an unusual tactic at this stage of the Tour. It's having some effect on the breakaway at 2 minutes 10 seconds, but they're not directly racing to catch the breakaway. They're trying to put their team leaders in a safe place.
Not anymore. Look at this. All of a sudden, we've gone back to the leading group of 4 riders, but all of a sudden, Phil, there was a very keen attention being paid at the front end of that peloton by Team Ethics Quickstep. They know they've done this tactic so many times before when they've found the wind to be just in the right direction. A big acceleration splits the main field into 3 or 4 different groups.
It happens very, very quickly when it does happen, and the riders are beginning to sense that this is going to happen. And now you can see the splits, and this is what happens. They've sensed the wind change, it's got in amongst the peloton, it's put riders on the defensive. This is why the leaders were quickly moved towards the front of the race.
Well, remember what happened to Alejandro Valverde a couple of years ago when a situation like this had him lose a good 20 minutes, or 10 minutes anyway, on a stage like this, because he was badly positioned once the race started to split up. And I'm surprised to see that they've actually put the hammer down so far away from the finish. We're still looking at 105 kilometres to go to the finish line. That's around about 65 miles. That's a good 2.5 hours of racing left.
You could lose big time.
It's going to be a grippy one, this certainly this afternoon. It looks as if this group may well just recover to get themselves back in contact, but that's an indication of how quickly the main field can split up. Look at the urgency now. We've got Trek Factory Racing moving to the front. 2 minutes and 10 seconds is the information being given from the 4 leaders. For these guys, you could almost say it's a slightly easier ride because they're riding at the same tempo all of this time. They're riding at a steady 38 to 42 kilometers an hour, the same effort. It's a steady effort throughout the whole of the afternoon, whereas behind here, they're riding at 50 kilometers an hour, then slowing down. Contador shouting there. Well, in fact, a race radio now saying 1 minute and 30 seconds. Alberto Contador is not going to get caught out. He's shouting to his teammate, use less of the road, to give less riders a shelter from the crosswinds here as he now starts to get himself organised. So looking a bit further back now, this is a very brave, brazen move. Now look at the damage at the back end of the main field. You see the race is certainly starting to stretch out. There's the new German national champion just slipping on the back there, just 22 years of age, Emanuel Buchmann. He's been caught out, a little bit of inexperience there. Look at this again. Get over to the far side of the road because we're giving too many people too much shelter at a time like this. And there, Rowan Dennis has not been caught out. There he is in the yellow jersey. Well, everybody knows what to expect when you get a big crosswind in a race like this. And all of a sudden, we're down to 1 minute and 20 seconds. Buchmann here, just sitting at the back. He's the recently christened the national champion of Germany. He's struggling to stay in contact. There's a little bit of a spin. I'm sure it's too far to go for this to really, but what they'll do is they'll start to have a look around and see if anybody's being caught out. Now, if somebody like Nairo Quintana, for example, had been caught out unawares because of that acceleration, they would see this as a great opportunity to get some time before we go down to the mountains. We're back with the leaders. And their advantage now is not very much more than 200, 250 meters. They're looking a little bit raggedy now as well, and every time they look over their shoulders, they'll see the mass of the main field. They probably realize there's been a massive split in that peloton, but a quick assessment shows that most of the main contenders managed to stay in the front half of that split. The only 2 riders who appeared to me had missed out were Ryder Hazerdal of Cannondale Garmin and Joachim Rodriguez, but they will hope that they can scuttle their way back in, and I think the impetus has gone out from the front half of the main split now, because after all, Phil, it's still an awful long way to go to the finish.
Well, they don't get to continue in exactly the same direction all the way to the finish, so if they slightly change direction, the wind will become unfavourable for a short time, and then they will ease up, and that's what the back group are hoping, of course, that they can reorganise and drag themselves back into the race. But what we've just seen could well be a dress rehearsal for what will come towards the last 25 kilometres of the day, when the wind will get them.
Well, being the bringer of doom, I have to say, I think the weather is, the wind is much more violent as we get down towards the coast. Here they've got a little bit of protection. Alejandro Valverde, Spanish national champion there.
Yeah, still looking okay. This is a peloton here that's continuing to work. That's Luca Paolini, number 99. 95 is Konstanchuk.
This is the second group. In fact, Valverde has been caught out.
He has been caught out, and he made that mistake a while back too, 2 years ago. Using his experience perhaps, and hopes it's all going to come back together again. Simon Yates, number 109, his twin brother Adam, right on his back wheel. They're in this group too.
And the American Andrew Talansky, 161 in that lime green jersey of Cannondale Garmin, just a little further forward. Just goes to show you've got to be attentive even on a flat stage when you think there's no danger at all, because winds like this, it's almost as tough, Phil, on a day like this as it is going onto a mountain stage.
Yeah.
That's Jan Barter.
He's Jan Barter. He's decided the catch is imminent. He's going to try and go alone to Rotterdam. That'll be a tall ask in his second Tour de France. Finished his first one last year. But I don't think he wants to throw all of his energy on the road now, because this is never going to hold off the group of 14 seconds. It's been an interesting breakaway. It's been a long breakaway as well. 70 kilometres in the lead for these 4 riders.
Because I think they expected to have a nice long day out this afternoon. You see the difference. That group in front is stretched out across the road. They've all looked around. They've made a point of noting that none of the major contenders, the fabulous four as we like to call them, the fantastic four, have missed out from this group. And the long line chasing up is about to make the junction. So I think we could very well see a truce for the next 30 or 40 kilometres. But after that, as you said, Phil, I think that was just a little bit of a dress rehearsal. So we'll see a lot more nervousness waiting for that kind of move to happen once again.
And they know it will happen once again now. Nicely protected roundabout here because of that central reservation stone wall, which is underneath those red barriers to stop the riders going over the top of them. And well, it makes it hard when you've got groups on both sides of the highway, but they should have a coming together up here. And the peloton rejoined. For the moment, the panic is over with 95.5 kilometres left to ride. But there will be a repeat of all that after we get out of Rotterdam for sure. Contador was paying a lot of attention there because he was the first team to appear at the front. Saxo Tinkoff, which he came up when they sensed there was going to be a change in weather conditions. Sky were on the ball as well. In fact, they all were, because nobody missed the move of note.
I think we've come to the point now, Phil, where everybody wants a little bit of calm because they know what's in store. We were still looking at 2 hours and 20 minutes, and Jan Barter now has certainly got himself a little bit of a gap, but they're not going to give him too much freedom. They realise now that having seen that real acceleration behind, there's the possibility that the brake could actually re-establish its dominance and its gap.
Well, it's gone out to 20 seconds. Jan Barter's been digging away. He's just on 5.5 kilometres from the sprint point. And so he's going to try and keep the breakaway for that sprint point. There is the prize money as well as the points, of course, as well. And the field, as they regroup, may not bother now. It's 1,500 euros for the first man over the sprint line.
But this has also been quite an advantage for Mark Cavendish as well, as we look at around about 5 kilometres to go to the sprint, because it's all the teams of the overall contenders who are setting the pacemaking. And Nasser Bouhanni has made an appearance at the front now. For me, it'll be interesting to see how he handles this first sprint, because there was a big question mark right up until 5 o'clock on Friday night as to whether or not he would actually start the Tour de France after his recent very bad crash in the French National Championships.
Well, we are just about 5 kilometres now, slightly inside from the sprint in Rotterdam. There's the big city as we head up towards it, and a great seaport as well, of course. A city which was built on a dike or a dam in the 12th century, and now is one of the busiest ports in Holland and the world. And based on the North Sea, of course, and the Meuse. The Meuse, by the way, is that river that runs out to the ocean here, but it goes right across. We'll see it again as we race down through Liège and towards the Mer de Huy tomorrow.
So looking down on Rotterdam, which, as I said, is the 10th largest port in the world. It came about by the fact that they actually started building dikes in this area around about the 1100s because of the prolific number of floods. It's also the home of the Dutch East India Company. There you can see the Kappel and the IJssel. It's a rather interesting crystal building there on the outskirts of Rotterdam, a very impressive modern complex. A huge number of containers coming through this port every year. You can see all the teams now are getting this over. Look at the different colours of all the jerseys. The red colours in the middle there are the Cofidis team looking after Nasser Bouhanni. The man who looks after him, by the way, will be what the French like to call the Régional de l'Étape tomorrow. The day after tomorrow, that'll be Florian Sénéchal. He actually lives in Combray when the race goes down to finish down there. Alex Dowsett there, just a quick glimpse of Alex Dowsett in their white sunglasses looking after the line of Movistar riders. They're going to spend a very nervous 9 days. They've brought a solid squad here. I think one of the toughest squads for the flat stages that I've ever seen coming from Movistar, with 4 national time trial champions.
Well, there's still riders struggling here to get back on the race, including Thomas Voeckler there. And so he's been caught out in those crosswinds, and he's coming back in that group.
Sure, he doesn't panic though. Thomas Buckler has been a professional for so many years now. He realises in a situation like this, you're either going to get back or not. So he's not putting too much effort himself into this. He now has got to the point in his career where he's prepared to take the risk of losing plenty of time in the opening days, because he will look for a breakaway.
Now, John Degenkolb, but also a man for the distance here as he tries. He's just coming under the banner on the... this is the breakaway, so this is Steph Clement who's getting it. Degenkolb on the left of our picture, digging very deeply. They're not going to catch the line, though, but right on the line, Degenkolb just got it in the black as he crossed the line there. I think he was taking on, I wasn't sure, Alexander Kristoff possibly there.
Yeah, Kristoff and Peter Sagan.
Well, I think we've learned there that Mark Cavendish may not be worried about the green jersey competition. He wants to win the stage. And of course, it is your man, Peter Sagan, who's most interested. Degenkolb gets it ahead of Kristoff and Sagan. So as they continue on, the Barter now has slipped away, won the day as far as that is concerned. He's not going to continue alone for another 84 kilometres, so he will allow to regroup. And he would now like a drink, but it's no good asking the cameraman. And the peloton has regrouped here, I think.
They also show that
Peter might have split a little bit here.
Yeah, 10 riders or so. It was Cavendish who was paying attention there. He didn't really dig deep into his energy. He just wanted to keep himself in contact, getting a couple of points for free.
Steph Clement
Otherwise
flying the flag for the Dutch there, going across in second place. Mark Cavendish crossed the line in 8th place. Bouhanni was in 9th place. So the sprinters digging in there. They all got points in the competition. First 15 riders.
Andre Greipel up there as well inside of the top 15, getting himself a few points.
Adam Hansen was the unlucky third man to fall, and he's going to have a tough chase now.
The race radio, Phil, was announcing a lot of numbers of Team Sky. Nicholas Roach was caught out at the back end of this group, while Pouls was caught out. Now, that could be rather precarious for Chris Froome on the running towards the finish, because he could find himself without too many teammates alongside him on a day when he probably wasn't expected to have too much difficulty.
Well, amongst those riders also left behind now is the Australian Simon Gerrans. This is Peter Kenyon. He looks as though he might be coming back in a small group. Ivan Basso is here. The man at the base of the camera there is Thomas de Gent. He was in trouble. There's also more Sky riders here. Wout Poels is there on the left in black. They look as though they might be recovering. That's the main field just in front.
Well, this is the kind of racing, Phil, that is very much typical to this part of the world. There's a very famous race in Holland, the Ronde van Midden-Zeeland, where we're in the middle of Zeeland right now, and the Ronde van Midden-Zeeland is a race that has been dominated by rainy conditions in the past, but certainly today it's a combination of the rain and the wind which is making this very dangerous. You've got to fight for position. You've got to make your position in the main field. Use your shoulders, use your elbows to make sure you can find a little bit of respite from the wind.
Well, Valverde has been caught out again. He has been dropped as well as he was earlier on. So this is the second time today that Valverde has been in trouble. As these riders start, Jean-Christophe Perrault, the runner-up in the Tour de France, wears number 11. He's over there. He's off the back as well. So
well, Nairo Quintana, I'm being told, has also been left in that group as well, and that is why the move has happened at the front. All of a sudden they've seen in the crosswinds there's a chance to put themselves a little bit of time between themselves and Nairo Quintana. Well, there's still quite a good armada of Sky riders. Sorry about the picture, don't adjust your set at home. It's because of the moisture that's coming down onto the camera lens. It looks very much like the shape of Chris Froome there in about second position, escorted with a Sky rider in front of him and behind him. Tinkoff Saxo obviously have got Alberto Contador right up there because that's why they are keeping the pace nice and high. Over to the left-hand side, you've got the black and red jerseys of BMC Racing. There is Peter Sagan just behind those guys. Oh, they're zigzagging left and right across the road. They're looking for the smoothest part of the surface that they can do in a stage like this. We're looking now at about an hour and 10 minutes to go to the finish. But they could, if they continue to put the hammer down like this, put some serious time between themselves and Nairo Quintana in that group. This is the second group on the road we're looking at here. This is a group of JC, or as they call him, Jean-Christophe Perrault. He's at 35 seconds. Nairo Quintana is in this group as well. Well, Movistar certainly were expecting a little bit of challenge. There's Nairo Quintana just to the right-hand side there with the white sunglasses on. Number 141 is Bauke Mollema. A little bit further forward there, number 214 is Jacques Jans van Rensburg. 191, Dominic Neur is the rider from Bora Arvin, just over to the right-hand side. Everybody really being put on the back foot, and all because of the pressure that all of a sudden was applied at the front end of the main field initially by Etixx Quick-Step. Situation like this, you've really got to keep the pressure on in the group, because if you let off the pressure of faction, you can find yourself losing a couple of minutes on a day like this. A flat stage and losing 2 minutes is certainly not what Nairo Quintana would have been dreaming about at the start of today's stage. 51 kilometers to go, that's 32 miles to go to the finish. And believe it or not, the sun is out here on the finishing line. And let's get ourselves organised in a situation like this, because this is a moment of panic. Listen to the shouting. Well, there's Pinot, number 21, Rui Costa on the far side, champion of Portugal, number 151. Well, Vincenzo Nibali has been caught out because of that acceleration. Now he's in the second group on the road, but he's not on his own. So, everyone chatting forward. There's rider Hezedal looking a little bit further back. Who else has been caught out because of this acceleration? Really quite dramatic. Well, the situation has changed quite dramatically on the road now, because we're looking at a fairly small group of riders at the front of affairs. Lotto Soudal are doing a lot of the pacemaking. Mark Cavendish is in this group with a lot of his teammates. Alberto Contador is in this group, and the last time we looked, so too was Chris Froome. But in the group behind, at around about 20 seconds, we have seen that the defending champion Vincenzo Nibali has missed out on the move, and he has been caught out alongside some of the other big names as well. Nairo Quintana is in a group much further back, but Alberto Contador is looking comfortable in the group with Peter Sagan as well. There is Alberto Contador just touching his radio to find out exactly what's happening here this afternoon. So there's a big pass d'armes, as the French like to say, a big fight in the main field this afternoon, as we've seen one or two riders caught out because of this violence of the acceleration coming from Mark Cavendish and his Etixx Quick-Step squad. The race has been split up basically into three major parts. So we've got the leading group. We've got Vincenzo Nibali and the yellow jersey of Rowan Dennis looking at around about a 22-second deficit. Yeah. And then Nairo Quintana, Jean-Christophe Perrault, they're around about 55 seconds to a minute. It's chaos on board the Tour de France Express now.
They're picking up this full-on tailwind now as they speed across this part of Holland. I'll tell you what, it's going to take some bridging now. Chris Froome has read it well. He's up there. The Movistar team are on the defensive now, and they're going to have to really work extremely hard. Valverde coming into shot now. He's going to have to do what he can for Quintana. Pinot also in trouble. The two Frenchmen who podiumed along with the race winner. All three of them now on the defensive.
Well, we expected this to be dramatic. The race organisation, Phil, as we look at Nairo Quintana there struggling with his white sunglasses. The race organisation said if it's windy today, it's going to be a dramatic stage. Well, it's certainly turning out to be that, but this is the kind of race that Ethics Quickstep and Lotto, the teams from the north of Europe, the teams from Belgium, they really enjoy and relish these kind of conditions.
And these are perfect now, and the tailwind actually is the hardest wind at the end of the day, because you can only pedal a bicycle so quickly, and the boys up front have got the full-on advantage. Now we're entering the desolate part as we go towards Zeeland here. The elements are there to catch you out. The Maillot Jaune of Rowan Dennis is now 27 seconds back with Pinot and Nibali, last year's winner. But look at it now, 63 seconds to the riders who finished second, in the case of Jean-Christophe Perrault and Quintana. And Quintana didn't look too concerned for, but he's not going to panic.
Well, he mustn't panic. He's got a lot of teammates alongside him, and strong, powerful teammates. Alex Dowsett was in there, the British national champion. He had another teammate in there, Castroviejo, Alejandro Valverde. Strong riders who can get themselves organised to limit his losses at a moment like this. You certainly must not panic in a situation like this. You've got to try and reorganise and get yourselves pulled back together towards the front end of the main field. But what I think is more important is that Alberto Contador and Chris Froome managed to get themselves into that front group. They were being attentive.
Well, you'll see plenty of these barrages here, dams. This is the one at Haringvliet. This is how the Dutch control the water so they don't lose their country under the ocean. And they're watching now a desperate moment in the Tour de France. Froome is in the hot seat, up in the leaders with Contador. Quintana is on the chase, and Pinot and Nibali are in between.
I'll tell you one thing that's also quite interesting, and it must be a bit of a difficult situation for Rowan Dennis to be in, Phil, because his team leader, TJ Van Garderen, has also managed to get himself into that leading group, while all of a sudden Vincenzo Nibali, I think a little bit of panic on board for him, because he realises this is the kind of situation where you've got to nail it back very, very quickly, because if you don't, you could lose a minute at the end of the day.
Well, I tell you what, Paul, there's every chance if this race stays in this situation, the next leader might be Fabian Cancellara. He's in that front group.
Well, I'm just thinking our little prediction. I was just thinking our little prediction at the start of the day when we said, well, there's no problem for Rowan Dennis. It's going to be a normal day. There's not anybody in this race who would really take the lead away from him. Well, there's one guy that you were mentioning, Tony Martin, Fabian Cancellara as well. I don't think Rowan Dennis expected to get caught out by that, but I tell you what, there's still a long, hard ride, because we're looking at probably 50 minutes or so before we get to the finish. This race is far from over.
But they are moving now. They're going to bring this race ahead to schedule the face of Alejandro Valverde in the centre of our picture there, as they all now try to do what they can to keep their leaders in position here. They really know now they're riding in the Tour de France, and this is a full-on race with a full-on tailwind pushing them along towards the finish.
1 minute is the gap between the leading group and the group of Nairo Quintana, just coming through on Race Radio as we speak, and they're getting themselves extremely organised. He's thinking it's Christmas this afternoon, because Peter Sagan, well, he just floated his way to the front. This man really is an incredible bike handler. He just seemed to be there all of the time, never under any difficulty at all.
This is Tony Galopin here, who's also had his big moments in the Tour de France. He's in the best place too, in the red jersey there as well.
Also, it must be quite difficult situation tactically, because look, there are 5 riders there from BMC, and one of those riders is TJ Van Garderen. He will have been paying attention. In fact, there are 6 riders from Team BMC, so Rowan Dennis really getting caught out. Chris Froome, he's got a couple of teammates up alongside him as we start to see the little panic. This is the second group on the road. They're at 37 seconds. This is the group. That's John Degenkolb there, Vincenzo Nibali. And the yellow jersey, well, Rowan Dennis, he has no real reason to chase. Yes, he'd like to protect the yellow jersey and keep it on his ultra. That's Thibaut Pinot. But when you see the group like this, jumping one man at a time here, another man there, that's a sign of no organisation. And now to bridge the gap, to get themselves up to the front of the race, they really do need to try and organise themselves in a situation like this. Because it seemed to me as if there were 2 or 3 big teams in that leading group who were quite prepared to make that organisation. Just slowing down and breaking up the organisation. That's Robert Gesink in second position, shouting at his team, slow down, get ourselves organised, because you can't have one man ride across on his own. You've got to be organised. You've got to have 10 or 15 riders setting the pace here as the gap continues to stretch out. I think these two groups that we're looking at now are about to consolidate themselves, but they're still looking at a minute's gap.
Looking at the front here, Team BMC, they're not worried about the location of Rowan Dennis. They're here for TJ Van Garderen, and they've got plenty of men up front. There's the merging of the two chase groups.
Yes, that's group number 2 and group number 3. You can see at the top on the right-hand side, they're just about to get caught by the group of Nairo Quintana. We're going to end up now with an extremely large group, and very often what happens, Phil, when two groups at the back like this reform, there's a little slowing down of the impetus as they start to get themselves organised once again. And if they don't get themselves organised quickly, that 1 minute and 3 second gap all of a sudden will be 1.5, and that's going to completely change the look.
Yeah.
This is only day 2, let's not forget. We've got another 9 days like this, or 8 days like this, before we get to the team time trial.
And how much attention was Chris Froome and Alberto Contador paying today when they recognised the weather conditions heading their way? They are both in that front group, and at the moment 64 seconds gain over the two most serious drivers, including that rider on the far side, which is Vincenzo Nibali, the winner last year. They've got to keep on driving, they've got to hope they can limit the losses, but with a tailwind like they've got at the moment, it's going to be very difficult to reduce that time.
Well, the important thing now is this is a huge group, and you start to get a psychological blow. You're thinking about all of the riders. Look at the names in this group: Nibali, Pero, Pino, Quintana, Rowan Dennis, Joaquim Rodriguez. These are big names. These are guys who could finish in the top 10 in the Tour de France, and today, currently, they're throwing away a minute. They need to get themselves organised and have a full-on chase for the next, well, it's 33 kilometres, 19 miles. It's probably not going to take them much more than 40 minutes. They've got to get that into their minds and realise we're losing the Tour de France here. The leading group, Peter Sagan, quite happy to come forward as well, because Sagan now is in an interesting situation. He is one of the fastest sprinters in this group. You've got Cavendish, Greipel and Peter Sagan, but also you've got Alberto Contador. So for Peter Sagan, he's got to think about, well, they've taken it up. It's gone right back up to the 1 minute margin according to the race radio. Well, that's going to change the overall standard. 61 kilometres an hour is the average speed. That flag you can see there, by the way, with the lion coming out of the sea, is the flag of Zeeland. And that's where we're going to right now. Beautiful day, unbelievable change. We've had 3 different weather patterns come through during the course of this afternoon. This is the second group on the road. Vincenzo Nibali, Nairo Quintana, Thibaut Pinot, big losers on today's stage, and of course a sad day as well a little bit for Rowan Dennis there, who was enjoying his day in the yellow jersey. Got a hand up there for Française de Jeu, FDJ. That looks as if it's Mathieu Ladagnou of France, and they've brought a very good squad to support their man Thibaut Pinot, who was actually riding pretty well there in the bad weather conditions, till all of a sudden we saw Ethics Quickstep really start to put the hammer down. Now this is a situation we've seen Alberto Contador in before. That's Michael Rogers on the far side. Michael Kwiatkowski in the white jersey. Ian Stannard for Team Sky. They now know this is the time where they've not got to think about where they're going to finish on the stage. The riders who are helpers now really need to bury themselves, because this is a big opportunity in the first week of the Tour de France as we now enter into the province of Zeeland. Of course, let's not forget Zeeland was the area that gave its name to New Zealand, Nouvelle-Zélande. And everybody, despite the fact that Tour de France is moving right, everyone's having a great time. 1 minute is the official gap over race radio between the leading group of 26 riders in that leading group and the main field, which contains some pretty serious contenders. Oh, there's a flat tyre for Daniele Bernati. This is Daniele Bernati's had a flat tyre again. This is one thing I was just saying before, as a professional bike rider, one thing you do not want is a flat tyre in a situation like this.
A little bit unlucky for Bernardi there, because he's been one of the strongmen all day for Tinkoff Saxo. They'll continue to race on because the race is saying the gap is 1 minute. Our computers are saying 58 seconds. Either way, the gap is very much still there.
Well, you know, one thing I was just remembering is that being a professional bike rider, Phil, you always think about in a situation like this, please don't let me have a flat tyre, because when the gap between the groups is so small, you're in the leading group, you know that if you have a flat tyre, your chance of coming back is almost impossible in a situation like this. And what it does, it makes one man less for Team Tinkoff Saxo. And Daniele Bernardi, who had that flat tyre, was an important man. Look at that. Peter Sagan has gone to the back. He's having a look over his shoulders there, because he knows if there's any chance of getting Daniele Bernardi back into that group before the end, he would like to do it.
Blue skies now.
Well, FDJ putting the hammer down, 58 seconds. It's still hovering there, but all of the time distance is ticking by. 15 kilometers to go to the finish. Fifteen kilometers. We're inside of 10 miles to go to the finish now. Oh, Peter Sagan has now had a flat tyre as well, and that really is bad luck for Team Tinkoff Saxo. This man, to me, was going to be one of the big favourites for the victory, to try and challenge Mark Cavendish.
Wow.
He's going to do something very special, Phil, if he's going to get back here.
Well, he's the man to do it. He's the best bike handler in the business, but he's still going to chase back the enormous speeds now, because they're picking up the wind. At a minute the gap is tied. He's gone down with a flat tyre of 14 kilometres to go. He has got to race back, and nobody's going to help him, because Contador's the defending rider.
And don't forget, he's just lost Daniele Bernardi. He realised how difficult that was at a moment like that. They were in such a dominant position, having Daniele Bernardi and Peter Sagan in that leading group. Then all of a sudden, your luck, Lady Luck, has moved away.
Well, it's the rain getting through those light tyres now, but the people are so committed in this front group. They know what they've got to do. Big Ian Stannard passing through there. A complete 360 here now as the riders go back on themselves. This is the chase group, and it looks as though poor old Daniele Bernardi has gone back into the chase group now. A strong man lost to Alberto Contador up front.
Yes, but more importantly, rather bad luck for Tinkoff Saxo, because they had two punctures almost at exactly the same time. And I wonder what is going to be the order on board of Team Tinkoff Saxo there, whether they will slow down a fraction. They only need to, because Peter Sagan changed bicycles very quickly there. And in fact, they're saying there's another flat tyre, Jakob Fuglsang. Team Tinkoff Saxo and Astana are not having a great day.
It's the look of the draw, and you never know which way Lady Luck's going to turn her finger here, because these are desperate moments. There's about 24 riders left in this front group. There are 3 riders, logically, who could take on the Maillot Jaune, and they are the 3 riders who finished behind Rowan Dennis yesterday in the time trial. And they are Fabien Cancellara, Tony Martin, and Tom Dumoulin. And remember, there's also a 10-second wind bonus today, and Mark Cavendish will be looking for that.
Well, the big question where Peter Sagan is concerned, Phil, is how many team cars are behind, and that may well give him a little bit of a chance to get onto the back of the convoy of cars, and that's what he will be dreaming about. But at these speeds, it's going to be very difficult. Strangely enough, as I look at from the commentary position, the windmills are hardly turning around, and guess what? The flags are rumbling.
The wind has become just like the when we arrived at 9 o'clock this morning here, completely still again now. The storm has passed through, the wind has gone, the damage has been done on the race, and now we've got 2 riders here. Chris Froome, by day 5 last year, was out of the Tour de France. Here he is now with the best moment of the Tour. He's on stage 2, and he's gaining time over everybody that matters to him, except, of course, Alberto Contador.
Well, that was the big man, Ian Stannard, just off the back of that group, former British national champion. He's done a lot of pacemaking in here to look after Chris Froome, but also to try and make sure that Chris Froome and Alberto Contador can prize some time advantage before we get down to the mountains at the end of the first week of racing. 1 minute and 24 seconds now is the gap. And I take my hat off as well to TJ Van Garderen. But you know what, when you think about TJ Van Garderen, I've very often said that the American with the Dutch-sounding name, but in the early part of his career, let's not forget, Phil, that TJ Van Garderen raced in conditions like this. He raced for the Rabobank development squad before moving across to join the bigger professional teams.
Still TJ Van Gordon on the back, 3:38. Second, number 38 there is Ian Stanley. Looks like he's struggling a little bit as they start. And so we're looking at the breakaway, working hard now. The man most like to see wears green jersey here, Tony Martin, because he was second in the time trial yesterday. It wouldn't surprise me if Tony doesn't try to do one of his famous love dashes to the line, which he's well capable of. Here's another round, not quite round this one.
Well, the three riders you were talking about, Phil, who could be looking at the yellow jersey, really Tony Martin, Fabien Cancellara and Tom Dumoulin. What they really need to do for Fabien Cancellara, what he's got to think about if he wants to get the yellow jersey, is getting himself inside of the top three on the stage.
It's going to be a close sprinter. Believe me, Fabien Cancellara on his day is not a bad sprinter. He could mix it and snatch a bonus. That would confirm him in the yellow jersey.
That's Cancellara over on the right-hand side in the white jersey with the black base to it. Now, he is a very canny rider. He's the only man from his team, Trek Factory Racing, in this group, and he will be riding freelance. He will have not done too much work in this breakaway group because of the fact that he's isolated, and he will try and take advantage. I would expect, in fact, I'm seeing him right now trying to move up to the back wheel of Peter Sagan. He will try and judge his sprint on somebody else. He knows all he needs is third place, because third place will give him 4-second time bonus, and that would give him the yellow jersey.
Just remember, He's hanging on to the back of this breaker. He's done a lot of work today for Team Sky. He's going to feel happy his team captain is safely in this group.
Well, just coming up with race radio, I know it's 4 kilometres to go, but the race organisation have announced they have a competition here for the most aggressive rider of the day. They've given it to Michael Kwiatkowski, a world champion sitting on the front there, not thinking about his own chance, but riding his heart out for Mark Cavendish and for Ethics Quickstep. There he is on the front, resplendent in the World Champions jersey. A great star for the future as well.
Well, watching with us, of course, is our new commentary partner, Jens Voigt. Now, you're an ex-teammate of Fabien Cancellara. You know Fabien better than most, Jens, so what's he going to be thinking about right now?
Definitely, Fabien is aware of the fact that he might take the yellow jersey if he gets any seconds. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's like a little roundabout, Fabien comes just flying onto the roundabout and tries to take the stage and the yellow jersey. So I think he is the man to watch out, but definitely Quickstep wants to control it for this man in the picture here.
But he's just behind this man in the picture, actually, Fabien Cancellara. He's choosing to follow Sagan and Mark. There he is, the man in the white helmet. He knows his riders, Paul.
He knows exactly what to do. He's worked it all out. This man has experience, and he's won the opening stage of the Tour de France on 5 occasions. But he's also worn the yellow jersey and managed to get himself the stage victory. On his day, he could rival some of the best sprinters in the world, although I don't think that he's going to rival Mark Cavendish this afternoon. That is a fantastic backdrop for a bike race.
These dikes were introduced to control the floodplains here. You see the water being let out into the North Sea here, and the oyster beds, and they control the levels. Otherwise, we'd all be underwater in this part of the world, because we are actually racing officially below sea level. 1 minute 22 seconds. This is a huge loss for Quintana.
It's not only Quintana, but to all the other guys who've slipped into that group a little bit further back. Vincenzo Nibali as well, Phil, is losing a huge chunk of time. When on the second day of the race last year, he was catapulting himself into the overall lead in the yellow jersey, which he was never to relinquish. It's going to be a great day. We had said this would be a very interesting tour. We've still got a load of stages to get down to the team time trial on stage number 9. But every day, I think we see from now down to the Mur de Cuy, across the cobbles down towards Cambrai, is going to be an exciting day of racing. Geraint Thomas is the rider in the blue and black jersey there for Team Sky. He is very well ensconced at the front end. Behind him, we've got the world champion, Kwiatkowski.
Well, Sky have had a marvellous day out. They're gaining big time in the favour of Chris Froome here, who is eliminating, for the moment, some of the major climbers who will have to try and repair that damage lost today in the mountains, because there won't be a lot of opportunity to gain any time for them over the next week of racing until the team time trial. Crossing over the Zeeland Bridge now over another barrage here, letting the water back out into the North Sea, and they are absolutely flying and continue to fly. We're not far away from the magic red kite in the sky. 1 kilometre to go. And it's not just Mark Cavendish who's thinking of the finish right now. This is Geraint Thomas.
Well, Geraint Thomas, I think, has had a brilliant season so far this year, but now he has to sacrifice himself for his teammate. There is Rigoberto Urán in second position. A little bit further back in the green jersey is Tony Martin. Cavendish looking over his shoulders. He knows the man that was going to try and challenge him is Peter Sagan, but they need to be very, very careful of Fabian Cancellara.
Well, they've come through the last couple of kilometres with great safety. That group of some 25 riders that stole a march in the eye of the storm, leaving behind people like last year's winner Nibali, Quintana, who came here as an outstanding favourite, last year's runner-up Jean-Christophe Perrault, last year's third-place rider Thibaut Pinot. They've all lost big time today in favour of Chris Froome and Alberto Contador and TJ Van Garderen. Now they're going to start a long straight sprint.
Well, there you can see the man who leads out, always leads out, Marc Renshaw, is on the front, in front of his own teammate there. Watch out, we forgot about Andre Greipel, because Greipel has also got a big acceleration.
And Greipel is gritting his teeth here, gets onto the wheel of Cavendish as they continue now. And Greipel is locked in a second. Sagan's going as well. Tom de Moulin trying to get into it. Cancellara is in fourth place. Can he take a bonus? He's going to have a go on the outside. Well, Greipel gets it on the line. Sagan has gone across in second, I think third Cavendish, and fourth Fabian Cancellara. Now that's a turn up. Greipel has looked like a winner all day. Well, now the clock starts now.
Well, that's the important thing, you know, the time gap for those leading group of riders who should all get the same time, Contador and Froome, will be now looking at the clock. That's the most important thing for them. This man started the day in the yellow jersey and he had an advantage of just 5 seconds ahead of Tony Martin. That has disappeared. I didn't see Cancellara get himself into the bonuses, so it looks as if Tony Martin
Well, looking now at the chase peloton over the barrage as well. The gap is still over a minute by far as they continue to come up towards the finish here now. They've got to sprint it out. They need to save whatever seconds they can here. And all of the riders, the top 2 finishes behind, the top 3 finishes in last year's Tour are in this group. And look at that, the clock's sailing towards a minute and a quarter now. Also in this group is Quintana, one of the big pre-race favourites. And also, let's not forget, Alejandro Valverde.
Well,
MTN Quebecers American Tyler Farrer brings them over the line here. A minute to 26:27. We'll wait for the official stop it. Here's the man who's won the day.
Hey.
10th victory of his season for Andre Greipel. Take a look at this, Paul. Cat must have gone too early.
Well, he went a long way out there, but look at the power of Greipel in the middle in the red jersey. Peter Sagan is really challenging on the right-hand side. You know what?
Third, I reckon.
Cancellara may well have nicked in for third place.
Well, that's confirmed the next yellow jersey of the Tour. Cancellara will get 4 seconds, and he is the next maillot jaune of the Tour de France. And looking at gaps there, they might even split time the breakaway. We'll see how the judges feel today.
Well, more importantly, Phil, is Cancellara getting third place. And on the photo finish currently, they're saying that Cancellara is in third place. That will give him a 4-second time bonus. That will give him the overall lead.
And that's what he wanted. And what a way of turning around a season which was caused by his crash in the Spring Classics, which kept him out. Started to show his return to form in the Tour switch. Let's have a look again. No doubt about the winner. Sagan, no. That man chasing his green jersey, remember. Far side was Cav. But Cav, I think, Cav only races for first place. And if it's gone, he sits on. And that's given third place to Fabian Cancellara.
Wow, what a stage show. That was something that we were thinking was going to happen, but it turned out really well. So there you go, there is the big powerful man. You throw in tough racing conditions, and Andre Greipel can come up with the goods of Peter Sagan. And I wonder if that flat tyre and the chase to get himself back into contact there took a little bit of a sting out of his sprint. But there's no doubt about this man. People regard him, or people call him the Gorilla. He didn't ride the Santos Tour Down Under this year. He wanted a slightly slower start to his season, and it seems to have paid off a little bit for him. He was missed sadly in the race in South Australia, but there I think people will be rejoicing, as they will be rejoicing in Germany as well. Looking a bit further back, Nicholas Roach on the left-hand side there. He was caught out in the crossfire. Daniele Bernati, and a lot of riders that will lose huge chunks of time on a day like this. But what a great ride by Alberto Contador and Chris Froome to take first blood against Nairo Quintana. And of course Vincenzo Nibali. Nibali a little bit unlucky for him though. That badly placed flat tyre really put the final nail into his coffin, and in a minute and 25 seconds, well, he's going to have to fight a long way back for that. But similar things could happen tomorrow. Tomorrow is a very interesting stage, moving away from Antwerp and going all the way down to finish at the top of the Mur de Huy, a very difficult, steep, nasty climb, with corners going in at 25%, and there will again once more be a little bit of time gaps in the finish. 5 minutes. So we will have a new leader at the end of the day, and that new leader is going to be Fabian Cancellara. There we go. Here's confirmation that Greipel, Sagan, Cancellara and Mark Cavendish. Daniel Osse in 5th place, Greg Van Avermaet. Chris Froome in 7th, Tom Dumoulin in 8th, Tony Martin 9th, and Warren Barguil. And watch out for him, that's a good move by Warren Barguil. But the team of the riders looking for a high place in the overall standings. That young Frenchman managed to get himself right in there. But the 3rd place of Fabian Cancellara is extremely important.
Showing top 10, Paul, but I've just seen a result which is showing Contador placed at 4 seconds. Now that will make a perfect day if they do split time that breakaway. It'll have to be confirmed, because these initial results are always provisional, and the referees themselves decide when they split time a leading group of riders. But there's no doubt who the winner is, and here it is, Andre Greipel.
Erstmal großen Dank an meine Mannschaft.
Well, the question was, it's a very difficult day ending up with sunshine.
Vorne zu sein, als die Windkante losging.
Well, how far ahead the lead was
Tony
on?
Galopin, Marcel Siebert
I
war
had Tony Galopin in the group with me,
einfach super stark heute und
and he did a big hard work. He did a lot of hard work to get me to the right place. Well, looking down here on the Zeeland Bridge, this initiative was put in place between 1963 and 65. There 54 concrete pillars to put that bridge into place. What a place to have a bike race, though, I would have to say, this afternoon. Here is confirmation then. Fabian Cancellara is the new leader of the race by 3 seconds ahead of Tony Martin, 6 seconds ahead of Tom Dumoulin, and Peter Sagan moves up into 4th place overall at 33 seconds. Geraint Thomas in 5th, TJ Van Garderen in 8th, and Chris Froome.
So let's take a look at what confronts the peloton today. They leave Antwerp and make their way to the top of the Mur de Huy. It's 159 kilometres. There's 4 categorised climbs, and they all come at the back end of the stage. The final one is to the top of the famous Mur de Huy, which is used in Flèche Wallonne, that spring classic midweek in April, where we see the likes of Alejandro Valverde lock horns with classic specialists in the shape of Philippe Gilbert. Today we expect to see Valverde amongst the thick of the action, but perhaps it will be an occasion where Vincenzo Nibali tries to claw back some of the time he lost yesterday.
Waste of time attacking at the moment. Because I'm on the heavier bike, so
The
use
Mayor
less
of
energy
Antwerp
anyway.
ready to get things started for what will be the
But I need
neutral
to
start. The
Push
rider from Lotto Jumbo
over yellow
who's
and
sitting
on
towards the
top.
front. That is
A bit harder.
Sepp Hermann, one of the Belgians on
because
that
I am
team.
on a heavier
They had a
bike.
frustrating day yesterday. They had Wilco Kelderman involved in a few crashes. He conceded a big chunk of time. Robert Hessing said that it was a day of pure frustration for him. Fabian Cancellara, he said that he was a little surprised to get the leader's jersey yesterday. His ambitions were, or his plans were, to try and defend his position yesterday. Likewise today at the Mur de Huy. and then attack the pave tomorrow to take yellow. It's arrived a day early. Now he has to hold on up this brutal final climb. And the man in the white jersey, Tom Dumoulin, he has stated that he's keen to try and take the yellow jersey tomorrow. He's 6 seconds behind Fabian Cancellara. And whilst cycling is popular in the Netherlands, the sport of bike racing is even more popular in Belgium.
We're going to increase our group size.
And the countdown for the rollout, the beginning of stage 3 for the neutral zone at least. And there was the Italian national champion, Vincenzo Nibali, one of the men who conceded time yesterday to Alberto Contador and Chris Froome. Race radio is now trying to tell us something, but we can't quite make it out. It was a little bit broken up. Yellow jersey, that's been worn by Fabian Cancellara. The green jersey with Andre Greipel. The white jersey with Tom Dumoulin. The King of the Mountains jersey, that has not been awarded yet. Today we get the first points in the race for the King of the Mountains jersey. Looks like the flag is almost ready to come in. Team's classification, that is being led by BMC Racing. And the flag is in. And it's Europcar, the first to attack. Looked like Brian Nielou, who was the rider going off the front. Martin Alminger was certainly there with him and looking to get into the break. Just as we expected when we saw his presence at the head of affairs throughout that neutral zone. Here he is, Alminger. Serge Pals is the rider who was there for MTMQ Becker, the young Belgian who was looking for his opportunity at the front. Martin Alminger back in 2007 when he won the Tour Down Under. Nulo is the rider from Europcar, 25-year-old. He's had 3 stints as a stagiaire for Europcar, which is effectively a short-term apprentice with the team before they actually signed him up. They had a look at him at the end of 3 seasons before giving him a contract. It took a little while to get convinced. He's now managed to get a spot on the team and get a spot at the Tour.
Expected to. I'll try and gain a few more spaces on the leaderboard.
There is number 125, Brian Nielou, in his first attempt at the Tour de France. He did ride the Tour of Spain last year, and unfortunately he didn't make it all the way through. So he's yet to finish a Grand Tour. He is the rider in that lead group of the least experience. And they are unforgiving roads in the Flemish part of Belgium. Normally quite rough concrete roads, little gaps that often run up the centre as well. And you have to pay great attention to when you're back in the main peloton. Here's Serge Pals. Well, mission 1 for the season accomplished for MTMQ Becker, and that was getting the invitation to the Tour de France. Serge is aware of what's required to win status in Grand Tours. He managed to win a stage riding for the Cervelo team at the Giro d'Italia back in 2009. Unfortunately for him, though, he didn't go across the finish line in first place. The Italian rider Leonardo Bertagnoli went across the line in first position, but was later disqualified. And Serge Pals was elevated to the winner of the stage a little later on. Number 167 at the back. That is Dan Martin, the Irishman, who has big ambitions on today's stage.
Amazing. It actually is a little bit dangerous sometimes as well, because everybody now has a camera at the side of the road if they've got themselves a smartphone, and the number of people who think that they can put their hands in front of these bike riders to get themselves a very clever selfie. But please don't ever forget, these guys are riding along very often at around about 50 kilometers an hour, and if you get hit by 80 kilograms at 50 kilometers an hour, it's going to hurt you and them. Well, they've settled in now. I think they're very happy with the fact that they've got this four-man leading group, but they're still looking at a long way to go, around about 3 hours of racing. Once they start to get down to what I call the bottom part of the course, once they get to that first climb, the Côte de Boisseau, that's when it'll start to get very interesting, because everyone will be fighting to stay towards the front. Those climbs are not seriously difficult climbs in their own right, but they are very narrow, and the descents away from them are narrow, so you want to start them in the first 25 positions if you can. The climb just before the final climb of the day that comes in at around about 5 kilometers to go, the Côte de Chérave, it's only given a fourth category climb, which means the first rider over the top will only get himself a single point. But it's around about 8%, so if anybody's feeling a little bit frisky at that point of the race, that's an ideal launch pad to try and get clear and get a good clean run at the start of the Mur de Huy, because sometimes the most important thing about the Mur de Huy is the positioning for the start of the climb. As we look here at Alberto Contador, who's finished well on this climb in the past, finished third once in Flèche Wallonne. Ian Stannard, just a little bit further back in the sky jersey, you might just have noticed the Union flag around his jersey. And the rider just over to the right in the pink helmet there, that's the champion of Portugal, Rui Costa. Costa, no stranger to winning stages in the Tour de France. He won a stage a couple of years ago up to the top of Superbès. And there he is. He's ridden well this year. He finished third in the Criterium de Dauphiné, as well as winning the 6th stage. He's in the white jersey. Nervous moments for everybody, but they haven't really began this chase in earnest. I think they were happy once they saw that the breakaway of 4 riders had established itself. But again, as we saw on yesterday's stage, I think the 3 strongest riders in that group are Barta, as we mentioned yesterday, 4 times in that national time trial champion, Martin Elmiger, Serge Pauwels, with a bit of assistance from the French rider from Europcar. Europcar always looking, and they were obviously looking for the early breakaway today, because Thomas Vogler was right at the front when we came up to the starting line.
Beautiful blue skies now, and the shadows reflecting the day. Temperature's absolutely perfect. What a contrast to yesterday. The organisers, well, deservedly, are patting themselves on the back after 2 days of racing, because all the journalists are saying what a fantastic Tour de France already. So different, not boring, big bunches racing for the sprint at the end of the day. A real bike race this week.
Well, it's something every day. I think today we know exactly. Today is sort of a mini Flèche Wallonne. As the team manager for the Trek Factory Racing said, and he didn't think that it would be ideal for Fabien Cancellara, but certainly if he was to lose the yellow jersey today, tomorrow is a mini Paris-Roubaix, and certainly I have to say that Fabien Cancellara would be looking for that.
Now, the man on the far side here in the Alpecin colours there, that's Warren Barguil. I tell you, he's a man who's riding high at the moment in the overall situation. 22nd, only 41 seconds off one of the favourites there, which is TJ Van Garderen. He's looking very relaxed right now, and I would say he's feeling pretty pleased with his performance yesterday. First big test.
Big test for him, and also putting himself ahead of all the other French contenders, guys like Pinot, Jean-Christophe Perrault, who missed out as well. As we go now through the small town of Arscott and l'église de Notre-Dame. Oh, yeah, a little problem there at the back. Looks like there was a problem there. That looked like Rowan Dennis. A little accident. Now he's got his thumbs up. He's okay. Just one of those. As the referees, it always cracks me up when the referees announce over race radio, "une chute sans gravité," a crash without any real graveness. Well, I'll tell you what, if any of the referees have ever fallen off, but it hurts at any time you fall down. But Rowan Dennis looks okay. Thumbs up. Okay, well done. The man, let's not forget, who won the opening day, and of course was the wearer of the yellow jersey yesterday. Rowan Dennis, he's got the yellow number on as well, because his team, with their performances so far, are the leaders of the team competition. beautiful day to be racing through Belgium, Phil. I have to say, I think many of the riders will be quite happy that the weather is like this and not the wet and grimy conditions that they were led into yesterday.
Well, you see how green it is, and quite frankly, you don't get many days like this in Belgium. When I lived here, the first 6 weeks it rained every day, but today is idyllic. The wind is reported to be rising all day long. It could be crucial as we turn back towards the finish, but I think the hills will have a bigger say. As we now head into Bunsbeek. This is also a Dutch-speaking village now as we head in towards the Walloon area and leave the Dutch-speaking area. And again, looks like the whole of the population has turned out. It's only a small little village, this, by the way. These 4 guys, if you're just joining us, got away right from the gun as they did yesterday. Different 4, except one rider's the same. Got number 192 there is Jan Barter. He's been in both breakaways. And now crossing into Tielman.
Well, we've got around about 10 kilometres of Flemish-speaking language to go through before we cross the linguistic border. And these guys over here, by the way, are making a quiet protest, because in the early part of this year, the agriculturists, the farmers of Belgium, were making some protests about a change in the tax regime here in Belgium, which was, they felt, not making it very worthwhile to farm. And instead of actually stopping the races, as we've seen many people stop the races in the past to make protests, this time they decided to use their tractors, the tools of their trade, to make a quiet protest.
Well, I'll tell you what, they've made perfect circles there, and that is not an easy thing to do. 3 minutes, 7 seconds. Sky on the right. Sky so far will be very pleased with their Tour de France. They've got Chris Froome onto day 3. Best of all of the favourites, really. He sits in 10th place. But if you look at all his rivals, Quintana, 1 minute 39, lost to Chris Froome already. Even Alberto Contador's lost 12 seconds. So things, after 2.5 days of racing, going well for Chris. He loved the team selected to be alongside him. Yesterday, the strength of Ian Stannard and of Geraint Thomas was enormously important in keeping him in those horrible conditions right on the sharp end of the race.
As we now look at 72 kilometres to go, around about 20 kilometres now before we get to the first climb, the Côte d'Or.
Some work again.
And the gap, as you see, it really has all of a sudden, without paying too much attention to the time gap,
just plummeted.
Yeah, it's just dropped, and that's just because of the general acceleration, the general impetus which is being lifted in the main field.
Yeah, we saw those pictures of poor Adam Hansen. He's going through some pain back there.
Yeah, well, the doctor had warned him, Phil, it was going to be really tough 3 or 4 days. But you know, Adam Hansen, when you bear in mind that he's riding his 12th Grand Tour in a row, he really is, he's going to fight to stay through this and to stick in here. And I really take my hat off to this guy because he loves riding his bike.
There he is, just in our picture again, number 76, Adam Hansen. At least he managed to pick up his food bag.
Immediately before the race.
He'll just sit round the back there. He'll come in with the last men today. That's not important. He just wants to get in, beat the time limit. Every day he hopes he'll get that a little bit stronger. Still got a week before we start the big Pyrenean mountains.
There's lots of movement at the front end of the peloton. Everybody's looking for their position and their place in this pack, and it's a forcing your position, holding your position. As you can see, hands coming off the handlebars a little bit. Nobody wants to allow someone else into the line. And obviously, Alberto Contador's Tinkoff Saxo team, it could be good for Peter Sagan today. Let's not forget, at the start of the day, Phil, Peter Sagan is in 4th position at 33 seconds. And I have to say that I think both you and I were extremely impressed with the way that Peter Sagan rode in the recent Amgen Tour of California, because he was climbing well and he was doing well in the individual time trials. And I've always said this about Peter Sagan, we don't really know how much he can do for himself as a professional bike rider, because he's still only 24 years of age.
Well, we've just come over to the Chateau de Gier. Boy, this one is in extremely good condition. Could put a bid on this one, Paul.
Well, it's fabulous. This chateau already existed going back to 1130. It's been owned by a succession of families throughout its history, but was seriously renovated in the 15th century The renovations are undertaken by Margarita de Faroise on behalf of her husband, Johan Olma de Sá.
Well, I wouldn't like the job of cleaning it, but other than that, I would love to live there. That looks absolutely superb. Belgium actually has some unbelievably nice chateaus, particularly in the region of the Woolen area.
This is also an extremely part of the heritage of Wallonia. Inside there's some extremely good collections of rare furnitures and some very good gold plates work, as well as embroidery, china and tapestries, owned today by the province of Liège.
Well, we've circumnavigated it. It's on the race route today. The riders will be passing through. These 4 leaders, though, are now back to only 1:22, and it's continuing in the reversal here. Martin Elmiger is the 3rd man in line with IAM on his shoulders. He was the rider caught in sight of the finish with Jack Bauer last year. Almost won the day. After close now, it's only 27 seconds. There's the peloton, and one vehicle looking after these 4 leaders. They've been away since the first kilometre of the race, and it's the big teams who are driving now on a very, very depressing, long, straight road. There's no way they can stay away now. They are beginning the battle once again on day 3 now of the Tour de France to fight for the seconds and to shuffle the leaderboard.
Here they are, it really is. There's Lars Boom, he's the rider at 3rd position in that line of Astana riders in the turquoise jersey. Movistar with the M in the middle of their navy blue jerseys, looking after both Alejandro Valverde and the Nairo Quintana. There is Valverde. You just see him popping through there with the Spanish bands around his waist. He won that title this year. Formerly a national time trial champion as well. And of course, since the start of this race, we've always seen at the front Tinkoff Saxo. And I think Tinkoff, I haven't seen very much of Peter Sagan, but my gut tells me, Phil, that Peter Sagan could well be looking for a move on this time. He's actually finished in 12th place in the Flèche Wallonne in the past. He used it as a learning curve as he was trying to figure out which of the one-day classics would suit him the best. And so I think when it comes down to positioning and riding for the possibility of a yellow jersey, watch out for a good ride by Peter Sagan on today's stage.
Well, a little reversed at 31 seconds, but that usually happens when they get this close. They're not pushing at them just yet. They'll wait as they close in on the Côte de Bonneau as we traverse one of the beautiful chateaus of the region. Go on, give me a guess, Paul. What do you think?
Well, this I reckon is the chateau of Falais. It goes back to 1044, its history, and before it was transferred to the Beaufort family.
Oh, you're right.
Thank you. Well, it was a medieval castle originally, and it's been changed quite a number of times through the 14th, 16th and 17th centuries, although its real origins go back to the 11th and 12th.
Well, it's been sold on several occasions. Let's hope they keep on renovating it because it is in beautiful condition.
Badly damaged by fire in 1937, but renovated and brought back to its former glory.
And the peloton probably aren't getting a very good view of that at the moment because it's over in the trees, but these are the 4 riders back down to 29 seconds. They just had a good look now. They're wondering what happened to the cars, but the chief referee has decided to come back in and keep an eye on them, so it might be misleadingly taken into the fact they're pulling away, but they're not unless you call 2 seconds an advantage. Here's the peloton here. Nobody behind the race. This is the average after 2 hours today. They've averaged 40.3, just over 25 miles an hour. And the average for the whole stage, 42.7. That was the second hour, 42.7. That's a very quick time today. It just puts them slightly behind the expected time of arrival on top of the Queen, but it will get quicker now.
Yes, it will. 64 kilometres to go. The top of the next climb of the day is at 50 kilometres to go, and that is the Côte de Bonneau. And this farmhouse that we're looking at down here, by the way, is the farming castle of Villewart. And very much in the same structure as most of these big farms were made. This powerful square construction is surrounded by water. It was around about 1200. The manor house of Villewart was here, and the courtyard belonged to the Count of Namur. As the leading force, still 24 seconds, that's not really very much at all. They are in the sight of the main field, they're getting closer and closer to the lining up for the next climb, the Côte de Bonneau. another chance to have a quick look at that fortified farm castle. There's plenty of those, in fact there's a lot of them in the Belgian Flanders. Contador's team, a little traffic island at the front, squeezing around there. Everyone will start to feel nervous. Some guys will be resigned now to just getting through this stage and will not be thinking in the back of their minds of the stage victory. When you look at the body language at the back end of the main field, you just get an indication that it has been, despite the fact that it looks easy when you're sitting at home watching this on television, there's a lot of riders already just struggling to find that acceleration to come out of the corners, to remain in contact with the peloton. A little bit further forward there, number 194, that's the new German champion, 22 years of age, Emanuel Buchmann.
And now it looks as though they're going to help Jens, Fabian Cancellara back onto his bike. What a shame this was. The AG2R rider down there looks like William Bonnet.
Well, Phil, again, this is because of the high risk of people. Sounds as if Tyler Farah was also involved in that accident.
Well, Donald Impey there has gone onto the side road, and oh my goodness me, the rider down there from FDJ has really taken quite a knock in the face.
It's Darrell Impey there, number 104.
Well, these riders, I think we can see for ourselves, are being reported. And that, in fact, the race is announcing that they are stopping the race because of the two heavy crashes. So we're going to see the peloton held. Now that, it's not unprecedented, but I'm very surprised. Christian Prudhomme, there he is, has said, guys, we're stopping the race. There's two crashes, totally separate, and they are classed as very heavy falls. Well, that is really a great shame. Building up for a big rush at the Côte de Buisseau. And now the race is being utilised. But quite honestly, some of those riders I don't think will be continuing.
Well, it was very difficult to exactly see. It looks as if one rider crashed on his own. It was right up at the front end of the main field when we saw that accident happen. In fact, there was a touch of wheels. When you lose a front wheel like that, it's very difficult to control and recover.
The first rider to go down was definitely a rider from FGJ, and it could have been that one we've seen with the facial injuries. William Bonnet apparently is being prepared for the ambulance, and Laurence Tendam is also down, another name we've seen. The lonely figure of the maillot jaune of the Tour de France just riding back up the road here now. He might or might not be aware that the race has been stopped. We're not actually stopping the race, they're calling it a neutralisation, so the riders will be brought back to a steady pace. And in fact, it looks to me as though they've released the race, so they did neutralise it, but nobody's rejoined and we're off again.
Well, they've picked the pace up very, very quickly indeed. That's the race referee there trying to get the car out of the way. And Team Sky, as immediately that the race was deneutralised, were right on the offensive.
The only thing I can think for, because we had two crashes, both independent of one another, the referees decided to neutralise the race to bring a semblance of common sense, get them all organised again. It wasn't a case of letting those who fell get back up. It was simply bringing common sense into the race, and now we're gone again. Well, Fabian Cancellara, take a look at this. That's a Française de Jeu rider who touched the wheel and went down, and then the riders just ploughed into him one after another at such a high speed as well. That's a very, very heavy fall. And you're right, the white jersey of Tom Dumoulin was standing up on the grass. Now they're announcing again, they're stopping the race again. They're going to try and utilise the race again. Well, that was actually a replay. That's from the first time they stopped it. But unless they're replaying the radio tour announcement, we're now waiting to see it utilised for a second time.
Well, Phil, we are hearing that Tom Dumoulin, the rider who was the best young rider, has abandoned the race.
Well, that really is... They're going to stop the race at the foot of the climb of the Côte de Buisseau. it's really very, very sad. They are stopping the race, and they're talking of stopping the race at the foot of the first climb. But I'm not sure the riders at the front want this to happen. Well, the initial fall was caused by a rider from FDJ touching the wheel of a rider in front, and that started a ricochet effect. And then I don't know what caused the second one. We didn't actually see it happen. Course is neutralised. Fabian Cancellara continues to ride back. Well, whatever we think about it is very sad indeed, because it was building up to one terrific showdown on these last climbs before the finish line today.
Well, the race radio is now saying they're going to stop the race at the bottom of the Côte de Bois. So, and I'm really not sure why. There's nothing in the rules to say that, but maybe because of the severity of the number of crashes.
They said it's because of two heavy falls, and there were certainly a lot of riders down, but these calls have to be made instantly. And communication, of course, is difficult when you spread across an open highway like this, but there we are. And the riders are going to have a word with the race referees now, because of course the boys who didn't fall are going to feel pretty upset about this. Here comes the neutralised man who's not neutralised right now. He's just coming back up towards the pack. The race is being stopped just before we start the climb of the Côte de Bois.
We're also hearing that Simon Gerrans has abandoned the race, and that is very sad. Simon Gerrans crashed in the Liège-Bastogne-Liège in April, had a nasty crash at the start of the year.
Tom de Moulin has gone, the rider who was riding so well and was placed in third overall in the classification. He's gone. William Bonnet is officially abandoned. Simon Gerrans and everybody here now a little bit perplexed. As riders rejoin, we'll see the arrival very shortly to Fabian Cancellara. And you can see the riders, there's officially the announcement come through now that William Bonnet has gone. That's rather sad. Are they moving off again? Because I don't think Cancellara's rejoined yet. Yep, they're announcing we're starting. Simon Gerrans has been announced officially now that he has abandoned the race. That's a big blow to Orica Green Edge. Here's the arrival of Cancellara as well, coming up towards the back of the race now.
Greg Henderson was involved in that crash, the rider in the red jersey, ahead of Fabian Cancellara. He's got a fair amount of his jersey missing.
I think we're going to have a sprint on this race.
Well, in fact, Cancellara's now gone off looking for his team car, which will be the #1 car in the line there. And he's discussing his situation. I don't think he feels too well, actually.
Well, let's bear in mind, Phil, this man is coming back from a very nasty accident at the start of this season, where he injured one of the vertebrae in his back.
Got 2.5 kilos to go.
The trouble is, this is such a sad outcome for the day. Well, they're still telling us, in fact,
tiresome riders.
they are telling the team managers to ask the riders to respect the rules and do not race until all the riders involved in the crashes that are riding come back to the back. They're saying it's because they had two very large crashes independently, and they took the immediate decision to stop the race, to allow those that can rejoin. But we know at least of 3 riders who have gone to hospital. race director Christian Prudhomme. His face gives nothing away. Used to be a sports commentator on television before he got his job as race director of the Tour de France.
Well, I don't ever, Phil, remember the race organisation actually neutralising the race because of an accident. I know the riders themselves neutralised the stage a couple of years ago when Sylvain Chavanel went on to win the stage after a massive pile-ups in the descent of the Côte de Stockeux. But to see the race organisation themselves make that call, I'd have to go back through my history books a long way. So Race Radio now saying that the decision has been made to neutralise the race to the top of the Côte de Boisseau, which is the climb that they're just starting now, and the race will be deneutralised and restarted again once they go over the top of the climb. And that will leave the riders with about 50 kilometres to go down towards the finish. That's the race organisation. Right in front there, the red car. Just a little bit further back there, number 202, Frédéric Brun. Thomas Vogler, 129. He's just sitting at the back end of the race. But we have confirmation that 3 abandons, Dumoulin, Gerrans, and William Bonnet of FDJ. Very, very nasty high-speed crashes as they were dropping down into the town just on the outskirts before they lined up for the Côte de Boisseau. Michael Matthews, he could have been a chance of a victory this afternoon. You can see by the way he's ripped up, he was obviously also severely involved in that very, very high-speed crash. Just having a look down there. 103. Luke Durbridge. Just looking to see if we can spot any of the other leaders of the race. I'm looking for number 1, Vincenzo Nibali. He was well positioned up to the front end of the main field. Andre Grivko is there. This is Henderson. Just struggling to stay in contact. Bear in mind the race is still neutralised until we get over the top.
Right, in goes Christian Prudhomme, a little wave at the race. They're moved away. The race officially been restarted 50 kilometres from the finish. And we've been neutralised or stopped now for the best part of 20 minutes as the riders now prepare to cover the last 50 kilometres of the race, and they're not going to rush at this. Fabian Cancellara here looks very, very sore indeed.
A lot of riders bearing the sequels of that very nasty crash, high-speed crash, probably in excess of 35 to 45 miles an hour, because they were going slightly downhill, starting to line themselves up for what was going to be the first most important strategic point of today's stage, the Côte de Boisseau. They decided to neutralise the race up to the top of the Côte de Boisseau. There are 3 more climbs on the day, and it begs to ask the question is who's going to be the first rider to start this race again?
Well, the enthusiasm will be there just now, and we know 3 riders have retired, but I think there'll be more names by the end of this day. Daryl Impey, we must presume, has got back on his bike, but he looked very, very sore indeed. Cancellara there.
Stannard did a fantastic job yesterday making sure that Chris Froome was looked after in the crosswinds, kept him in the right place, positioned him in the front end of that split. They have picked up the average speed quite a bit. The race is back on, although it doesn't seem to be on completely in earnest. So that's what it looks like from the skies here in Belgium. A bit of a dampener on what was lining itself up to be a pretty exciting finale down towards the finishing line. And It's always very difficult for these riders when they're in full flow like that to get stopped by the race. I've seen races neutralised in the past because of trains coming by and
time for a
incidents on the road,
recovery
but never
ride.
fully put into neutralisation because of an accident like that.
Well, these 4 riders here, including Greg Henderson on the right, are clearly under pressure straight away. They've all been on the ground and they just cannot lift their pace at all here. This is poor Johan van Summeren, usually a strong workhorse for Team 82R. Had a nasty fall on his back there, his shorts ripped as well. The pressure's gone on again, the race has restarted, so the riders have decided they're going to race this last few kilometres, and it is going to be tough. We've got, first of all, the green jersey point sprint at Hammerwanger. Expect to see Andre Greipel try to get mixed up in that. He's wearing the green jersey today after yesterday's stage win.
The hell are they taking so bloody long for?
But the pain of Johan van Summeren riding on his home soil here of Belgium. This is Lawrence ten Dam, also had a pretty nasty fall as well.
Well, he's obviously on a different machine as well. You can see a lot of these riders have obviously pranged up their bikes quite a bit because he's got no number on his machine, so he has a spare machine from the team car. Greg Henderson also there, looking very ripped up, and you've got to really get yourself concentrated now if they're really going to take the last part of this race quite seriously.
I think they are. I think the attitude's changed again now, and it's going to put an awful lot of riders in trouble. Fabian Cancellara in the all yellow jersey there was right at the tail end of the race. That wasn't where he was all day.
He stops
and
the
long thin line
getting a bit cold now.
coming out of the pack means that they're under pressure from the pace being set at the front. Number 109, Simon Yates, caught a glimpse of. Perry Kerman in the break yesterday wants a drink.
Well, that's probably the most important thing to think about, Phil, when you're looking at sports and an event at this level. That's Alejandro Valverde towards the front there, thinking about
the black colours.
This is an important day for him. Alejandro Valverde in second position on the road.
Yes, and it looks as though if making that move it looks like it might be the style of Rowan Dennis too, the rider who had the first yellow jersey.
Well, riders trying to recover there. That looks like Greg van Avermaet coming across the gap there with Alejandro Valverde. We are not too far away now from the sprint point at Havelange. It's around about a kilometre to go to the sprint point in Havelange, which comes at 31.5 kilometres to go.
So we are under 1 kilometre to go now as the sprint begins to regroup here, and they're trying now to get Greipel into position for that green jersey. Peter Sagan is also trying to get on the picture. Now Greipel is in third wheel here as they start to run down towards the line. Greipel is finding his sprint legs again. This could be 20 points for him. As he races up to the line, he'll have to go a little bit. It's coming close, he gets it. And he takes it right on the line there. The rider who was just with him behind there was John Degenkolb himself in second place. Nasser Bouhanni was third. Cav had to go. It looks like he might have gone over there in fifth place.
And Peter Sagan was not too far away either. You can see the gap between the two groups. It looks like it's starting to come all back together, and there will be a general slowing down for that leading group, Phil, once they've gone through the sprint point there. You can see the acceleration coming from the riders from Movistar, but coming across the gap and making the junction at the front was Alejandro Valverde. Have a look at this one more time. Andre Greipel, having won himself the stage yesterday, producing an awful lot of power with the challenge coming in the black jersey on the right-hand side from John Degenkolb.
Yeah, Degenkolb gets the second place. The first 15 riders there get points in that competition. 20 points for the man who won. I think they're now eased back a little bit. It's a short journey across to the Côte d'Aref.
Paul getting himself maximum points, 20 points for Andre Greipel, ahead of John Degenkolb and Nasser Bouhanni, and there is confirmation, 20 points in the back. Coquard in the fourth place, Cavendish being attentive in fifth, Peter Sagan in seventh, Roman Kreuziger up there, and Nicholas Roach inside of the 12th place. So as they start to get that little bit closer. 27 kilometers to go to the finish, and now they're taking this very, very seriously again. They're all going to try and battle for position now to get themselves as close as they can into a good position, and it looks now as if we're going to have a pretty serious race over this last probably 35 minutes of racing.
Well, there's no doubt now they've got over the crash and they're getting on with the job in hand. As a result, we've lost Tom de Moulin, William Bonnet, Simon Gerrans with a broken wrist, and Kodjachuk of Team Katusha. 4 we know are out, but some of those riders look so badly injured they seem to be continuing, but tomorrow morning they may not be starting.
Well, that's a special thing, Phil, about the Tour de France. The most important thing, it's in the back of your mind all the time. I've just got to get through today. I've got to try and get to the finish. Nobody wants to abandon the Tour de France. Even if you're severely banged up, any other race on the calendar, you would probably pull off and look for the ambulance or the car to take to the finish. But this is the Tour de France. It's almost, I always like to compare it to an ascent of Mount Everest. You don't want to get up to the final camp before summiting, and you will do everything you can to stay in the Tour.
Well, the sad pictures we saw of the crashes, they'll go round the world like wildfire, of course, as the riders now have regrouped and they're racing now. Now we've gone through Havelanga, we're going to get lots of undulations in this region, but the next official climb is the Côte d'Eref, which is 10 kilometers from the summit of that climb as we speak.
But these roads get a little bit narrower once again as we start to get closer to the Côte d'Eref. The final climb before the Mur de Huy, the Côte de Chirave, all of the riders very concerned about that because that's quite a steep little climb at 8% the average gradient. And although they only give the Mur de Huy an 11 or 12% gradient, there are some points in the corners, Phil, which I measure them in at around about 22%.
It gets very steep on the bends. In their teeth, they are pushing this pace on now as fast as they can. Bernardi and Tessato, the workhorses for Tinkoff Saxo, they really are. And never far away. 4th in line at the moment, Alberto Contador. Such a clever rider, Contador.
Yeah, but he'll be thinking about this climber. He realises, having really pulled the rabbit out of the hat yesterday with being in that leading group and getting himself a good advantage over Nairo Quintana, today could be another good move for him. He knows what the approach to the Mur de Huy is like. He knows how important it is, and he knows it's all about positioning and what a team he's got to look after him, because not only does he have Matteo Tossata, but also Peter Sagan, and it may well be that they'll turn the tables around today, and Alberto Contador might try and get the stage victory for Peter Sagan, because in the back of my mind I've got a gut feeling that Sagan is going to get himself up this climb in a good position.
He's a strong man, and the situation has changed now. Remember, we were racing flat out to the foot of the Côte de Boniceau, and they were very nervous. It was a touch of wheels by 2 riders, started the ricochet effect. We don't know what caused the second crash. We never saw any images of the second crash. Everybody was blocked by the first crash. 22.8 kilometers to go. Tinkoff Saxo are now, Saxo Tinkoff rather, have now taken over the race situation here. The Chateau de Modave. Let's bring it down to another level, Paul. Tell us all about this.
Chateau de Modave, well, that is in a 450 hectare natural reserve. The Modave family owned the lands around here way back to the 13th century when there was a fortress, and one of the oldest parts of the chateau dates back to the 13th century.
Well, there is the farm alongside it there, the Castle Farm, which was also started back in the 17th century as well.
By the way, Phil, just above one of the great doors heading in there is the motto, which reads "On y soit qui mal y pense," and I'm sure you've heard of that before.
I have. What do you mean?
Well, it's the Queen's motto, the motto of the royal family.
Yeah. Well, they've got back into the action now, and I must say they pulled themselves round, because the big riders, the big teams in this race have seen an advantage now to try and race towards the top of the Huy, snatch those 10-second bonus for the first man over the line. There's 6 and 4 for the next 2. It can alter the overall. Chris Froome's Sky team right in the centre, easy to pick out in those black jerseys and blue racing helmets. This is the man suffering most, the race leader, Cancellara.
And you can see the speed here, really, because the main field stretched out into this very long line. Now, Cancellara is a tough old character, I have to say, and he will do everything he can to try and survive on a day like this, because he will do as much honour as he can to that yellow tunic. He knows how important it is for his team, but it's also important for himself, just not to let that tunic slip away from his shoulders. All he has to do is try and stay in contact with the main field. There are time bonuses available. Once again, 10, 6 and 4 for the first 3 riders to cross the line. Peter Sagan has a little bit of a buffer, a little bit of time to make up. He's looking for 33 seconds on Fabian Cancellara if he wants to take the overall lead, and he's in 4th place at the start of today's stage.
We're looking at the peloton. Drive, drive, drive is the motto of the day now, and there's no slowing this race down. We're pushing up to 60 kilometers an hour, Paul.
Yeah, well, different coloured jerseys coming to the front now. That lime green jersey of Cannondale Garmin, that is the team of Dan Martin. Dan Martin is quite an expert at these hilltop finishes, and he will be looking to position himself nicely before the next climb of the day, because I think the important part of this next few kilometres, as we go under 20 kilometres to go, it's all about positioning.
20 kilometres to go now. Well, there's no doubt that Alberto Contador, they've been counting themselves the luckiest team. They had no fallers in that crash. I don't think Cannondale Garmin did either, but this is a shame. The speed has really cracked Fabian Cancellara. He's injured again, the yellow jersey. He goes under 20 kilometres, losing time now. He'll be losing at the yellow jersey tonight, and really we have to say, to no fault of lack of strength, poor old Fabian Cancellara in trouble as he freewheels to the right. On the Côte de Ref now, Paul, this is the riders themselves said it may only be a 4th category, but it is hard.
Very hard indeed, and the top of it is at 10 miles to go, 16.5 kilometres. I think they're more concerned about the final climb before the Mur de Rouvy, the Côte de Chirac, but as you can see how narrow these roads are, it's so important to be well placed. Luke Durbridge is sitting in the middle there for Orica Green Edge. Michael Kwiatkowski is the rider, the world champion, and further down the road, sad to see the shoulders of Fabian Cancellara bowed down in the agony which he must be going through just to try and stay in the race here.
Yes, it looks like Mark Renshaw just in front of him too, and he had a flat tyre when the split came, so he's been relegated as well now. Chris Froome just passing through our picture in the black right at the front there, looking pretty cool, calm and collected. There's Quintana on the far side, he's still in this group. Peter Sagan with the red across his jersey there. Now we are hearing, I don't know whether you could hear that, but I heard somebody in the motorbike shout attack on the left. And the green jersey is going off here, and there's the attack that's just come.
Well, at the back end of the race, there is a rider, Andre Greipel, is being left behind. Now, all of a sudden, there's a little move. Now, this is a very important move to go clear on the Côte de l'Eref, because there's a 1 point available for the first rider to go over the top of this climb. A lot of guys, Mark Cavendish going backwards there on the left-hand side, just looking at the damage being done at the back end of the main field. 124 slipping away, Johan Genet of Europcar. Cavendish, 4th on the race yesterday. Fabian Cancellara. Very, very difficult day for Cancellara now. Well, Angelo Tulic, the French rider from Europcar, is in the lead. We're looking at the front end of the main field here at 17 kilometres to go. There is one rider in front of the peloton at around about 15 seconds, and that is the Europcar rider, Angelo Tulic. But we can see all the main contenders. There's JC, Jean-Christophe Perrault in the AG2R jersey there in the brownish shorts, and this is the lone leader. Now, once he gets over the top of this climb, he's got a very good chance of getting himself the single point. There are 2 points available. There's 1 point available over the next climb of the day, the Côte de Chirac, and 2 points available over the top of the Mur de Rouvy. That's a 3rd category climb. Up towards the top, and it was Team Sky trying to take the responsibility of the chasing. There's a chance there to see, of course, the beautiful Belgian blue cows over to the right hand side. This is pretty much the home of the Belgian blue, and this is Team Sky. Geraint Thomas over on the left-hand side. Chris Froome up into 3rd position. Alberto Contador got all of his teammates around him. That's Geraint Thomas. And now slipping away here, number 144. And that is Stein de Volder. He's running this Tour de France for the first time in more than 5 years. Just looking to see who else has been caught out here. Number 81, John Degenkolb. Degenkolb, watch out for him once the race gets a little bit further down, because he's one of the top sprinters in the Tour de France this year, but he's a man who can survive over the top of the climb. The yellow jersey is 1.5 minutes behind as we go over the top of the Côte d'Eref. Froome over on the right-hand side's got plenty of teammates up alongside him. TJ Van Garderen in there as well for the BMC squad, and still keeping himself up at the front. The red and white jerseys looking after the rider from Katusha, that is Rodriguez. He's got the bandage on his elbow, just to the left. And Nasser Bouhanni, the big sprinter, he's also nursing injuries from an accident that he had in the French National Championships just 1 week before the start of the Tour de France, crashing inside of the last 200 or 300 metres. That's TJ Van Garderen in the middle with the white sunglasses. Peter Kenyon comes forward now in the white jersey over the top of the climber. We're now dropping down into the small town of Marchand. Well, 143. Fabien Cancellara and Andre Greipel. Greipel just having a look across to see what the situation is there. And Fabien Cancellara, I'm sure he would have done a lot better than this if he hadn't had that accident.
Oh, Cancellara, his hand on his hip there. He knows now he's just got to pedal his last 14 kilometres. The yellow jersey will be going elsewhere tonight. Michael Shaw here was the first man over the top. I didn't think he looked like Michael Shaw to me.
No, I think there's a little mistake there, because as far as I'm concerned, it was the Europe car rider went over the top. So let's ignore the graphic on this occasion.
So it was Angelo Tulik, yeah.
Yeah. Fabien Cancellara, though, Phil is trying to find as much of his courage as he can muster, and I just wonder, Phil, whether he can drag his body up the Mur de Huy, which the climb that comes up towards the end of today's stage, because it's a beast of a climb. I mean, you are looking at around about 22% in some of the corners. You have a hard time actually walking up this climb.
Yeah, this is the top of the Côte d'Eref here by the back markers who have now given up their racing for the day. A lot of the sprinters are in this group, including Nasser Bouhanni, Andre Greipel, Mark Cavendish, as they go over the top. At their 2 minutes 22 behind at that point now, as we speed on here with the group Maillot Jaune behind by 2:22. Sky are now taking very close reference to the front of the race, because they've got Chris Froome right there.
Yes, everybody now taking a serious amount of concern of placing their riders close to the front. Vincenzo Nibali is never far away. You can see his teammates in the turquoise jerseys. Also, Jean-Christophe Perrault, JC Perrault, they call him, from AG2R. He is at the front end of the main field. All of the riders who got caught out yesterday may be being just a little bit more attentive here this afternoon.
TJ Van Garderen, the third man in that line of yellow crash helmets with the red jersey. He's got his team up here as well. He's best placed overnight of all of the pre-favourites of the Tour de France. But this group will thin out more dramatically on the next climb of the Charave, because it's far tougher than the Côte d'Eref.
Steve Cummings on the right-hand side, slipping back there, wearing number 63, and that in fact is Rowan Dennis, the erstwhile leader of this race, having won the opening individual time trial. Seems like a long time ago, Utrecht.
Well, look at the effort here being put on by Richie Porte now, the wingman of Chris Froome. This is Marcel Seberg coming through to the camera. Well, there's no doubt the race has been marred by that crash today, but the riders now are really turning on the style. It has to be said that the same strong men we expected are now pockling to the top of the water pot here. Still Richie Porte here, followed by Geraint Thomas, and then behind them both is Chris Froome. Chris is so pleased with his team. They're guiding him, they're keeping him safe into this third day of the Tour de France. They're trying to deliver him now to see if he can win the day for them.
Well, pretty strange, Phil, because although it appeared as if the Frenchman from Europe car was going to go over the top of the climb in first place, so we're getting confirmation that in fact it was Michael Shaw. A little bit of confusion on the roads this afternoon because of all the excitement that's going on, but one thing is absolutely certain: the run-in towards the finish is very, very tricky and precarious. We all know what the final climb is like, the final kilometre. It's very steep indeed. But inside of the last 8 or 9 kilometres, there are a lot of very, very tight bends. So you've got to really hold your position at the front end of this pack.
Well, that's a sharp one to say the least now, as the riders just try to hang on to the very speed and the wheel in front as they go around that right-hander. And you could see close up there, they even had to ride across that cobbled peninsula that was sticking out as they made that right turn. This is a little bit of a downhill as they are flying downhill. Well, Jens Voigt is part of our commentary team. Jens, you're probably living every pedal stroke with these riders right now. What do you think's going to happen now?
I do feel for them. It's a stressful day and it's a very hard day with a lot of unexpected crashes. We have another obstacle coming before actually the last climb. That second last climb is a fourth category and it's only 1.3 kilometers long, but it's 8% gradient, it's 8% steep. So that's a vicious little climb, and they're all gonna get ready to tackle this second last climb in the best possible position, because basically the decision who's able to win is gonna be made already there.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. The riders are afraid of this next springboard here, and that's why they've been racing so hard to try and see it first. And at the moment, Richie Port is doing an outstanding job for Team Sky here, because once they hit that climb, I think this big group will split.
Yeah, Jensi, the thing is about these little climbs towards the end, which is very much like a mini Flèche Wallonne. It's not necessarily the climb that's precarious, it's also the little rundown away from them, because they're narrow roads with very sharp hairpin bends.
Rides a different approach to the climb to the finish in Huy. Michael Rogers in second place here, the strong man on Contador's team. The white sunglasses down the pack, they're worn by Geraint Thomas. Quintana has moved up towards the front as well. He's looking for it too.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Phil, Fabian Cancellara is no longer in this group. We will have a brand new yellow jersey at the end of the day. If you look at the riders, yellow jersey 4.5 minutes behind. Alberto Contador will be looking at the victory. Tony Martin, in fact, is moving up onto the tail of Michael Kwiatkowski. Now, I wonder if the world champion is going to turn it around. Michael Kwiatkowski could be trying to set something up for Tony Martin, who starts the day in second position overall. And Peter Sagan, of course, is fourth. He's looking, though, for 33 seconds.
Geraint Thomas looks over his shoulder here. He's looking, he said, where is Chris Froome? Got to keep an eye on Chris Froome. That's Chris Froome now come through. He's indicated Chris to move up now because the others are moving up. And Froome has got it on. He's gone right onto the wheel of the world champion. That's a good move, I would suggest. Michael Rogers, the man in the front of the group here now. He's doing it for Alberto Contador. This is a hill that we don't know. We've not seen this hill. Only those that came to have a look have. Rogers grits his teeth. Kwiatkowski, Froome.
Looks like Rafael Majka, who's come to the front there, in fact, who's doing the pacemaking there for Tinkoff Saxo. A lot of damage being done at the back, as we can see there. It looks to me as well as if Michael Kwiatkowski, the world champion today, may well be trying to do something very special and turn the books around for Tony Martin. If he can survive on a climb like this, he's got a good buffer over everybody else.
8%.
Here, right, it is Rafael Michael here, which he gets back down, much smaller figure as he grits his teeth. The king of the mountains in the Tour de France last year. Just saw Matthias Frank of I Am Cycling tail off the back here. Kwiatkowski is sitting there and waiting, and this rider also being dropped at the moment. That's Frank as he goes. The whole world has imploded now as the riders one by one have found this a little climb too far.
Eric Federico going backwards. He's a former four-time stage winner of the Tour de France, finding this one just a little bit too difficult this afternoon. Damage is being done, and this is not the final climb. There's another climb to go after this one. It's 8% the gradient here. They'll drop down very quickly. Go along the River Meuse or the Maas, depending on which language you want to speak, and then they will start to head downtown into the town of Huy, and then they'll turn right and start to line themselves up.
Rui Costa, the former world champion, people were naming him to win today, being dropped here on this penultimate climb. Quintana here now as Geraint Thomas tries to grab his wheel.
Well, in fact, Rui Costa, Phil, was involved in that accident. The race, his race car put out a tweet to say that he was injured on his left-hand hip. So He's having a hard time surviving on his A like this. Rafael Micah, though, is the man stamping out the authority. In about 7th or 8th position, just behind Nairo Quintana, is that bobbing figure of Alberto Contador.
Yeah, we did see Costa sat on the ground in that first crash. As we come up and over the top here, there's only 1 point and only one rider getting at the top. Might have been Micah who got the 1 point. That's not what he's looking for. His pacemaking has really... Yeah. Boysenhagen at the back of this group.
So this is Thibaut Pinot there, number 21, is losing a little bit of time on this short, violent climb. He's got a teammate up alongside him. He's around about 20 seconds off.
Boysenhagen trying to stay in this race now because we have a very, very small group at the front now. All the damage done by Micah. And they're saying that Costa's now dropped 28 seconds on that climb. It'll be tough to bridge it. Look at the gap against the yellow jersey. He's now going to be over 5 minutes back before he comes to the top. 5 kilometres to go.
And the big names are all there. Alberto Contador, Chris Froome, Vincenzo Nibali, Nairo Quintana. They're all keeping a very close eye on each other. They don't want to lose any time, the guys who lost time yesterday, as they did on the stage over the roads towards Zeeland. But this is obviously a very serious move by Alberto Contador and Tinkoff Saxo. There's Chris Froome up into 4th position. TJ Van Garderen is there as well in the yellow helmet of BMC Racing.
Well, they gave that, in fact, not to Micah, but to Arredondo in his first Tour de France. He got the single point there. So there's 2 joint leaders. It's whoever wins the race, there's 2 points for that. Then we're going to have 3 joint leaders, but whoever wins the race will lead the King of the Mountains today. That seems to be the way it's going to be now.
Well, there's 4 minutes, and it's going to take them about 3 minutes to get to the bottom of the final climb. Then it's going to take them 3 minutes to get up the final kilometre, because it's a nasty uphill finish here to the Mur de Huy.
Well, it's a wide run, and straight off the road he goes. He didn't even try to make that corner.
Well, he was locked up.
He saw his exit and took it.
Well, he was locked up with his back wheel, and he was not going to correct that move going around the corner.
Well, he looks as though he may have found a soft landing here, as we saw that. As they're looking here now at Roman Kreuziger here, trying to get back into the race.
Well, Froome is up into 2nd position. Geraint Thomas working like a Trojan on the front here. You can see the Union flag on his sleeve there, former national champion. Geraint Thomas is in 5th place overall at the start of today's stage. Iridescent yellow sunglasses for Alberto Contador. They're all being very, very attentive, and not too far back. Joaquim Rodriguez, this morning he was playing down his chances, saying he felt a little bit too injured after his accident of yesterday. And also right in there, Vincenzo Nibali. There he is, wearing number 1. Kwiatkowski, he's talking on the radio.
Well, these are the survivors, and we're now 3 kilometres to go, 2 at the finish here. Nobody's going to slow down now. Geraint Thomas is talking with the team Movistar. This is the team that's leading Quintana to the base of the Huy as well. Don't know if... yes, Valverde is there too, the man that has won the classic race Flèche Wallonne on 3 occasions. This is Thibaut Pinot, and he's looking for 11 seconds.
Got his teammate Steve Morabito, the Swiss rider who moved across to FDJ during the winter months, looking after him. He's not too far back, 11, 12 seconds. He's keeping a very close eye on that yellow car, the neutral service car in front of him. That's where he wants to get to. He wants to make sure he doesn't lose too much time on a stage like this. Underneath the railway bridge, this is the Quai de Namur. Very shortly they will see the bridge in front of them. That's where they'll take a right-hand turn into the heart of Huy before then starting to line up, and then shortly they will see the Flamme Rouge. 2 kilometres to go.
Massive charge, under 2 kilometres to go now. Now, can Chris Froome, he's going to go shoulder to shoulder here, I think, with Quintana, Valverde, Contador. The Mur de Huy is going to be a battle royale of men who are looking to win the Tour de France, which is still almost 3 weeks away.
Well, looks like Micah has recovered to get himself right to the front. Ahead there, just behind him, is Geraint Thomas, Alberto Contador, all of the big names. Very shortly they will start to line up. They will see the Flamme Rouge.
That looked to me as though it was Wilco Keldermans there who's trying to go clear here, and he's onto the climb as he looks over his shoulder.
Bob Jungels,
Luxembourg champion.
Brilliant move by Bob Jungels at 22 years of age as they start to line up. Chris Froome was scuttling up the outside on the left-hand side there. Rodriguez is not far off. He's trying to get himself onto the wheel of Geraint Thomas.
1 kilometre to go. Jungels has gambled and going early in his first Tour de France. It looks as though Kwiatkowski, the world champion in the white jersey, is falling out of it now as Rodriguez is going to try and take over the control here.
Well, it's all about holding on to your position now, and Team Katusha have come forward to try and keep this pace nice and high. Kwiatkowski, the world champion, number 111, has found it a little bit difficult this afternoon. Maybe he did too much work on yesterday's stage. Sitting right on the wheel of Chris Froome is the bobbing figure of Alberto Contador. Behind Alberto Contador is Peter Sagan.
Well, Sagan is absolutely amazing if he can hold this one off, but now Chris Froome is in a perfect position here as they try to slog it out to the finish. It is going to be desperate moments, but Froome tucking in on the black there. This is a teammate of Joaquim Rodriguez who's trying to break into the picture, but watch now for Froome. Contador is on Froome's wheel. They are waiting because we have the steepest part of this climb is just as they move around the left-hand corner.
That is Rodriguez, a little shake of the head. He's the rider with the bandage on his elbow. TJ Van Garderen is the rider from BMC in the yellow helmet moving up towards the front there. Chris Froome is trying to stay very close to the front. He keeps looking over his shoulders. These riders have to understand and remember, if you look at the average speed, we're looking at around about 20 kilometers an hour, 12 miles an hour. Van Garderen is over on the right-hand side. Froome is now starting to wind it up, but it's 450 meters to go, and Contador is locked on his wheel.
There's the steepest section of the course, and he kicks again, and Contador's trying to match him. Rodriguez is up there as well. And look at the face of Alberto Contador. Froome is going to try to ride them off the wheel here. Rodriguez is right in there. He's the rider on the right of our picture. And as Rodriguez tries to break to the right now, he may have that little extra impetus because Froome may have tried to make his move a little bit too early. Greg Van Avermaet, who is trying the move there now, as it's Tony Galopin, who was off with a puncture, who has moved up here into second wheel. So it's Rodriguez, Galopin, Froome trying to make it up towards the finishing line. It's approaching.
And into fourth position, TJ Van Garderen is right up there. This is Pierre Roland at the back, but Joaquim Rodriguez certainly knows this climb extremely well as he comes around the final corner, looking for the last catch of a sight of that line. Well, Froome's coming back.
Froome battles on, he's best of the favourites right now. Rodriguez, though, who has won the Flèche Wallonne once, finished second in it twice, is now going to try and champion the win on top of the wheel for the Tour de France. Dan Martin has also made a move in that lime green jersey. How long can Rodriguez hold this, and can Chris Froome open it up? He's got it, Rodriguez gets the win. Froome gets second place and more bonus time, and that is a tremendous ride by him. Dan Martin crosses in fourth. TJ will be in sixth, Nibali in seventh, and one of the Yateses are over there in eighth.
Upside inside of the top 10 as well. There is Alberto Contador. Looks like he's lost a couple of seconds there because Alejandro Valverde was ahead of him. Robert.
Well, the early move may have cost Chris Froome the win, but judging by the time gaps, he's actually gained some more time.
Psychological battle. They're looking.
Well, that was such a vicious battle as they came up the hill here. At the end of this, it's even a harder climb than when they come to the end of the Flèche Wallonne, which is a race of 200 kilometres. And still on the climb there, number 21, who finished third in the Tour de France last year. That is Thibaut Pinot. He's losing quite a bit of time here at the moment. So Froome is right up there now. I'm just going to have a try. Well, Paul Sherman, you can probably try and work out who's doing what here, Paul, now. But Peter Sagan lost about 37. Might be Peter Sagan who's going to come up here, although I think Chris Froome may have got better time on him. It's going to be a big calculation now to see who is the next leader.
Froome will have picked up a 6-second time bonus for second position there. He started the day 4 seconds behind TJ Van Garderen. There will be a little bit of a gap between the two of them, so it's going to be very close on the countback. But it looks very much as if it's going to be Chris Froome, who was pretty much right the way up there, I have to say.
He could be in yellow tonight.
So as we look down here on the citadel, the fortress just above the Mur de Huy, what a dramatic finish that has turned out to be. No doubt at all about this big acceleration coming from Joaquim Rodriguez. Played down his chances this morning. He gets the win just ahead of Froome. Froome will pick up a 6-second time bonus, but it's all about the gaps behind now as we start to do the addition of points. Just goes to show that Chris Froome really was keeping a very close eye on this one here this afternoon.
Joaquim Rodriguez, the man who yesterday was struggling and losing big time. They call him Purito, the little cigar, has now won this stage of the Tour de France. A terrific performance for him and a real turn up for the buck, but inspired by a finish he knew. There's Tony Martin down there, started the day in second place. And still out on the road with injuries due to that crash, the yellow jersey Fabian Cancellara. No longer ambitions now of leading this tour. All gone in one crash.
Well, very sad day for Fabian Cancellara. And what a dramatic day it was on the roads of the Tour de France. Tomorrow could be a very similar scenario as we start to head out towards the finish. And we're getting confirmation, Phil, there that with that time bonus, it looks as if Chris Froome will be leading this race by a single second from Tony Martin, with TJ Van Garderen up into third place.
Well, I didn't even see Tony Martin in the melee there, but we'll wait to see if that is confirmed. And that is just the way this tour has gone. The team has been absolutely brilliant looking after Chris Froome, and now on the day when he had to, he has delivered the goods. And the yellow jersey could be his, but it's a long way to the finish.
Very long way to go. Let's not forget we've only got one Sunday under the belt. There's 3 more Sundays to go before we get to the finish and Champs-Élysées, but big time gaps here at the top of the Mur de Huy. Everybody now will start to cast their minds forward to the next stage. Here's confirmation of the stage.
Well, Froome given the same time, and then there are timed gaps to everybody else. A real Le Mans up with AG2R, third for the Frenchman, Dan Martin, Galopin, Van Garderen, Nibali, Sean Yates, Quintana, and Bauke Mollema, who was right up there till just before the finish when he cracked. He lost 11 seconds, and Contador not there, so he could be considered to have lost even more, and Froome gaining all that time. It seems, we'll wait for confirmation, but it looks as though he's in the maillot jaune. All of the enthusiasm knocked out of the group maillot jaune, who are now many minutes behind. There's the victory margin, second ever stage victory for Joaquim Rodriguez. He won in Mons in 2010, we're heading back there later. He'll be a marked man when we go down there. But meanwhile, on the Huy itself, they still continue to climb up, and the crowd know what's happened, you know, as they look to point out the maillot jaune of Fabian Cancellara. You see them shouting directly at him.
Big question mark is, Phil, when most of these riders get to the finishing line and get evacuated to the local hospitals. Most of them will be heading down to the hospitals down towards Liège. What the situation will be, and will they be able to start tomorrow, having had the x-rays and scans?
Well, Davil Impey looked very, very hurt, and he's actually ridden, he's in this group at the moment, still going up the hill. Here it is, the overall, and Chris Froome